Folks, it's time for a live stream here. It is sort of kind of the Just Baseball show. As always, it's presented by BetMGM, but really, this is our MLB Trade Deadline Spectacular, and it is presented by a new partner of Just Baseball. Goat Labs is the presenting sponsor of the MLB Trade Deadline. We have so much we got to get into. There's going to be so much more added to our plate over the course of the next hour. The MLB Trade Deadline is in 57 minutes at 6 p.m. Eastern. But you got myself, Jack McMullen, him, Aram Leighton, and then further off to the side, him, Peter Apple. I couldn't really point to whoever. Peter, tell us about our new friend Goat Labs, who is the presenting sponsor of our MLB Trade Deadline live stream.
So something we always do on the show is argue about who the GOAT is. Time to build him yourself. One of the most famous trade deadline pickups ever made, hence the name of our sponsor, Goat Lab. Today, we're playing the trade deadline deck by Goat Lab. Spin a slot machine where every card is a famous deadline move. Cespedes in 2015, Manny Ramirez in 2008. Adley's already in as a Red Sox. Everyone on Earth gets the same 8 spins in the same order, and the ratings are all hidden. No luck, no spreadsheet. It's just pure ball knowledge. And I actually played it this morning and created an 86 overall player with the comp of Paul Goldschmidt. Not the soft side of the platoon Goldschmidt. We're talking about prime Paul Goldschmidt. And if you think you know ball better than me, prove it. Beat the 86 overall, and your name sits on our live leaderboard. The winner of today's competition will win a Just Baseball hat and shirt of their choosing. Finish your player and sim his whole career, rings, Hall of Fame. You can find the link to play this awesome game in the episode description. I'm telling you, it's like one of those games that you have on your phone where you're spending time playing in it and it's really, really addicting. And then you're like, wait, I've been on this game for almost way too long. That's how fun it is. It's one of those games that just sucks you in. It's a ton of fun. And you see the link right there. Hey, if you know ball better than us, go beat me. And I'm sure you will, because I don't think I did very well on my first try.
Can we acknowledge that while you greatly enjoy it, you're also really bad at it on first try? Because we all
I'm trying, it's new. I'm having a good time. But yes, I wouldn't call myself good at it so far.
You were very bad at it. Aram and I built like an identical player, because today, right, if you play the Just Baseball deck, you get the same crop of players each time. So like, you guys playing that are listening to this right now that are trying Goat Labs for the first time, like, you're going to get the same cast of characters to choose from based on your spins that myself got, that Aram got, that Peter got. And Peter spat out an 86 overall player. Aram and I both spat out like an 103 overall.
The craziest that we had the same exact player. We assigned the same tools to the same spots, because you got to decide what tool you're going to put with each player. You and I made the same exact player. I had a slightly better career because I made some better decisions along the way, which is fun. I think Peter must have just been clicking like more fans every single time, just making fans. No, I was trying to balance it. I made some selfish decisions. Then I made some career ring chasing decisions. Then I made some longevity decisions, and I squeezed out, I think, 1 or 2 more WAR than you.
What stinks is I went bag chasing. Like I chose for like the swan song, like the one final go, like last season.
You did the farewell tour.
Yeah, I did the farewell tour, yet I made less money than you. So can we compare like OPS? I had a 939 career OPS. I made $747 million. Aram, what's your deal? You were a 939. Okay, but you made 775. So we had an identical stat breakdown, but yet you made more money than me. So that kind of pisses me off. But oh well. We already have so many of you joining us. Thank you so much for joining us on YouTube. It's a great YouTube crowd here already. Sure, more of you are going to be joining as the trade deadline inches closer and closer. We're 54 minutes away from the MLB trade deadline. The hard stop is at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you for joining us on X, if you're there as well, at justbb_media. Give us a follow. Our social team, before we get into the trades bit by bit, and we're going to go rapid fire through the first hour, and everything else that comes across the ticker, Peyton's going to kind of like sneak attack us. Like you can throw up graphics and cards whenever, but Peyton and I are communicating via text to figure out like a run of show here. It has been a frenzy already, but we are going to go kind of bit by bit. But before we get into that, want to shout out our brilliant social team, because our team on Twitter, on Instagram, they are kicking so much tail right now in terms of just posting, reporting, posting. We got 2 guys that have scoops here, but I mean, it is so much fun to watch what our Just Baseball social channels have put out. So a huge testament to Addison and the rest of the team there.
Yeah, we just hit 80,000 followers on Instagram, and that's a big shout out to all the people like Addison and Logan and, you know, the whole crew who have been running our socials. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, has been awesome as well. And then Arm and I are posting trade breakdown videos on our TikTok. So it's just been an awesome ride. And again, special shout out to everyone here listening. And the best way to support this YouTube live stream, make sure you just smash the like button and subscribe, because we're going to continue to cover the trade deadline even afterwards and throughout the week. And we got some awesome guests lined up to come back on the Just Baseball show. So hopefully for all of your trade deadline needs, make the Just Baseball show your home. How about it? How about it, boys?
Okay. We've got to run a show for all the trades here, but Aram Layton, newest report, the Red Sox have made Marcelo Mayer available per Chris Bubic. That would potentially be for pitching. What is the value of the asset that is Marcelo Mayer at this very moment?
I don't think extremely high. I think there's a couple things with Marcelo Mayer, and I when you think about the Red Sox and the way that they've kind of handled some of the optics and what gets leaked and what doesn't, I think other teams are going to do their due diligence about just like, is this going to be somebody that's going to come in and immediately work really hard and do all of the things that we want to have him overcome the injury concerns that he's had and things like that? Like, I think some of the team's frustration with Mayer has also kind of been aired out a little bit. That doesn't really help your case. But I think when you look at Mayer, the player, I had 2 biggest concerns with him as a prospect. One was swing and miss, and like how it would rear its head at the big league level. And 2 was injuries. And I think you've seen both of those things be abundantly, evident in his big league tenure so far through 114 games. So I think he's a really interesting second piece in a deal for a really good player, or in a swap for, a lesser big leaguer. I think at this point, there used to be burn risk there, because like, oh, well, what if Marcelo Mayer figures it all out? You're going to really be upset if you moved him for, a reliever or whatever it may be. I think at this point, I don't know if you care as much, because I think that burn rate becomes a little bit less concerning when you still see the injury challenges. It's not like he's a wizard defensively. And though the bat to ball has gotten better, he's slugging 300 through 70 games this year. I think there's a lot of things he has to overcome, and I think he's a change of scenery candidate.
Gotcha. All right. So we just got news, again, reported by Jeff Passett of ESPN, that Heliot Ramos is being traded from the San Francisco Giants to the New York Yankees. And we are going to have to walk the tightrope of reporting new news here and breaking down new news immediately, but also catching you up on what has happened today. So Peyton Genus, you can kind of like sneak attack us with, any visual you may have built for Heliot Ramos going to the Yanks. But we're going to start with probably the biggest move of the day, and it pertains to the Boston Red Sox and the team that's dangling Marcelo Mayer. Adley Rutschman is the newest member of the Boston Red Sox. Adley Rutschman, Jake Rogers, another catcher, Tarek Skubal's best friend that was just DFA'd by Detroit and picked up by Baltimore. Rutschman, Rogers, and a little bit of cash go from Baltimore to Boston. The return, another catcher, Carlos Narvaez, but the big ticket return, the top pitching prospect in the Red Sox organization, right-hander Anthony Ianson, along with the right-hander Kyson Witherspoon, who was their first-round pick last year, Endy Azokar, an outfield prospect, and then a player to be named later. So Craig Breslow pushes the chips in here. Peter, I want to start with you. Adley Rutschman stays in division. He goes from Baltimore to Boston. What is your knee-jerk reaction to that?
So my knee-jerk reaction was, first of all, you traded Adley Rutschman. That in and of itself, like, you came up with that prediction during our trade deadline predictions. Nice call, by the way. And it seemed even a little bit outlandish, not because it's not understandable from the Orioles' perspective in order to trade Adley Rutschman when you've already extended Samuel Basallo as kind of your catcher of the future. But still, the idea of trading Adley Rutschman, especially when he's not a rental, when he's got a year and a half of control, is just rather shocking. And then you tell me you traded him in division. You better have gotten a haul. And I'll throw it over to Aram about the haul, but I know we both agree the Red Sox had to pay a big in-division tax, because I wanted Adley a ton as a Yankees fan. But once I saw the return, I was like, all right, Red Sox, you earned him. You earned him.
Yeah, I mean, they paid the in-division tax, and I think with the uncertainty around like baseball next year too, it's like you better hope we got a pretty full season. But I think the biggest thing too is you wonder if the Red Sox feel pretty confident that they can extend, Adley Rutschman there, and if that's something that's part of this as well, because I think with how much you gave up here, you got to feel like you've got a shot to do that. Because look, I'm all for buying and being aggressive, and I think the Red Sox and the way this team is played should absolutely do that. Adley really elevates this team's ceiling and a switch hitter and what he brings to the table and the defensive ability. It goes him working with this pitching staff. There's so many exciting wrinkles to this. However, it's a lot. It is a lot. It's one of the stronger packages I can remember for 1.5 years of a player here. And when you look at like you're getting Anthony Ianson to lead it off, and I think that's been we talked about him as a breakout prospect going into this year. Kind of everybody did, and then he's gone out there and not only broken out, but just has done every single thing that you would have. I think the most bullish people would have hoped for, which is the stuff is better, but the command is right there, and he's just overwhelming hitters now, even at the upper levels. The guy that was drafted ahead of him, their first round pick, Kyson Witherspoon, it's a really good buy low opportunity. There's a first round pick that has struggled as the Red Sox try to clean up his delivery a little bit. His arm action is stabby. And I think as they try to smooth it out, it's caused some command inconsistencies, and the feel for breaking balls hasn't totally been there. But this is a first-round talent that you're kind of buying low on as he struggled, that change the scenery, see if you can kind of revamp things and get him back to where he was. And then Endy Azokar has huge, huge upside here. And I think that's a really fun third piece, potentially. We're talking about a bat that at 19 years old has already popped exit velocities as high as 113. Good feel to pull the ball in the air that I think is going to translate that into potentially easy plus power as he grows. And there's some speed and athleticism as well. Just those three guys alone are a crazy return for a year and a half of Adley. And I get it. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad trade. It's just for the O's, like if you're going to trade in division, this helps justify it for sure.
Yeah. Holy crap. Like, Jack, when you saw this trade too, it was mind blowing. I think back and I was looking at the biggest in division trades over the last, 20, 25, 30 years. And I thought this might be the biggest ever since 1999, when the Blue Jays traded Roger Clemens to the Yankees in exchange for David Wells. Now, there have been some big ones along the way, but that it's felt like the biggest to me. Adley is a top 5 catcher in the game, and this haul is massive. This is one of the coolest trades I've seen in a long time.
It is cool. I will pump the brakes on being the biggest interdivision trade since Roger Clemens in 1999, because Adley Rutschman is not who Adley Rutschman once was. He just isn't. Over the last 2 years, it's a 3.8 WAR. He's been on the shelf, 3 separate times this season already. You're getting damaged goods Adley, but he's still a very good baseball player. There's no doubt about that. But is he a catch 6 days a week guy anymore? Doesn't seem like it. He hasn't been doing that for Baltimore, and Baltimore clearly favored the young catcher with the better bat right now in Samuel Basallo over Adley Rutschman. That's why he was possibly expendable. It wasn't, we're reluctant to deal this superstar. But to your point, there's that intra-division tax that you have to pay. So, again, Adley Rutschman goes from Baltimore to Boston. We've got another big deal that went Anaheim to Toronto. And first and foremost, slight golf clap for the LA Angels, getting John Mozeliak in there and Artie Moreno giving John Mozeliak the ability to move guys. This is the first time we've ever seen the Angels sell when they should have sold 15 times over the course of the last 17 or 18 years.
So do you think that was Perry then that more so was like, I want to operate this way? Or do you think it was more Mozeliak finally saying, I'm going to change my ways. I'm firing, or not Mozeliak, excuse me. The Artie saying, I'm going to change my ways. I can't, it's like the toxic relationship. I need to grow up as a person. I'm getting rid of this bad friend that helps me do bad things. And we and break up with them, or just break off with that friend, and let me bring in somebody better, smarter, more experienced. And let's start to try to do business the right way here. I feel like that was more of what it was like. Perry was more of a signaling of a new approach for Artie, who, good self-awareness to finally come around here.
Yeah, I really don't think it was a Perry Minasian and John Mozeliak problem. I think Perry probably wanted to run the team a little bit different than the way Artie Moreno wanted him to run the team. And once Artie Moreno fired Perry Minasian, it kind of sort of seemed like it was time for an entire overhaul. And I think Artie Moreno is understanding of that. Artie Moreno, over the course of his life, has made a lot of money. That means he's made a lot of good decisions. And I think he can probably look himself in the mirror and say, we're the butt of every joke in baseball right now. We've officially overtaken the Rockies. So you've got that going on here. But do want to get into that. Again, we're trying to toe the line of being ready to react to immediate reporting while also going back and recapping the best deals of the day. You're smiling, Aram. What just came through?
I think kind of exactly what I was saying about what Marcelo Mayer's value probably is at this point, traded for a reliever.
Aram, I think you nailed it. That's why I was waiting for Jack to usher in the trade, because I wanted you to you caught the alley-oop earlier on in the show and then you just dunked it. He got traded for a reliever. I like Eric Miller. I like Eric Miller. He was traded for a reliever.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's a very crowded infield. I understand Casey Schmidt's hurt, but fascinating. All right. Let's actually talk about this Halo deal, and then we can circle back on Heliot Ramos and Marcelo Mayer. I do want to talk about Jose Soriano going from the LA Angels to the Toronto Blue Jays. Jose Soriano was one of the more interesting, possibly available names on the pitching market this year, and Soriano makes his way from Anaheim to Toronto for Arjun Namala, their second best prospect, Eddie Micheletti, and right-hander Angel Rivero as well. 3 prospect return. Arm Layton, the big ticket name here is Arjun Namala. Kind of want to kick it over to you first. Initial thought on Soriano joining the Jays and Namala being traded by Toronto.
Yeah, kind of surprising. I think we thought Toronto might sell, nothing crazy, not like go nuts sell, but sell some rental pieces and call it a day. But I think they saw an opportunity to position themselves for the next couple seasons, and they go get Soriano, who I think they're even going to probably tweak his usage even a little bit more, and maybe get away from the 4-seamer. We'll see what they do there. But a guy that's clearly going to bolster their rotation for, the rest of this season, which that doesn't matter as much, and then 2 more after that. Maybe they extend him. We'll see. The biggest and most surprising part is you usually just don't see prospects of Arjun Namala's caliber traded at the deadline. And by that, you see some borderline top 100 guys. You see big packages that we've talked about. But Namala, for us, is a top 30 prospect. It's a guy that's going to stick at shortstop. He's their former first-round pick. He's had a little bit of turbulence, which was to be expected as one of the youngest players in the draft class, but has just continued to get better and was a big riser for us, as we talked about on the call-up, because he added more power. The bat to ball got better. The approach got better. And he had settled into now Double-A in his age 20 season, where he's been really productive. A little bit of a hamstring issue, delayed a bit of that, but has been back and swinging it again. So when you have plus raw power, the ability to stick it short, that's not a guy that I feel like a team is quick to move off of. And that was surprising for me. I get that you're getting 2.5 years, 2 1/3 years here of Soriano, but this year is kind of wiped out. So I was a bit surprised. But at the end of the day, they upgraded their big league team, and Namala is still a year plus away. And I think this was as good of a get for the Angels, though. And this is just the Angels operating, which is exciting. We've talked about it with the Rockies, seeing them just operate, seeing the Angels operate here. John Mozeliak had some of his shortcomings in St. Louis. It felt like the game kind of passed him by a little bit, but the guy knows the process. He knows how to do things. And compared to what they were doing before in Anaheim, this is a signal of, I think, better days ahead for Angels fans.
Yeah. Peter, what do you think about the fit of Jose Soriano going from Anaheim to Toronto when Soriano is controllable for 2 more years beyond this?
Yeah, I really commend GM Ross Atkins for a deal like this, because I think a lot of GMs, especially those on teams that had high expectations and then kind of fell down and don't look like a playoff team per Fangraphs, the Blue Jays only have about a 6% chance of making the playoffs. A lot of those GMs might just say, all right, we'll sell off expiring pieces and go get them next year. But Ross Atkins said, I'm not going to be put in this arbitrary buyer or seller bucket. I'm going to make the best moves for my team moving forward. And I think this was a great move. And it sets up a really strong rotation next year with Dylan Cease at the top, Jose Soriano, Trey Savage, and then they're going to get Cody Ponce back as well. And I think there was also a move, Daulton Varsho, in exchange for Spencer Arrighetti. So maybe he's their 5. So I really appreciate Atkins isn't just your normal seller, right? He gave away Gausman. He could have said, all right, deadline over, or traded away Varsho and just kind of gotten a little bit complacent. But he said, no, we still have an elite team here. We went to the freaking World Series last year, and I'm going to continue to build. And Soriano, Arjun Namala is a great piece, but they also have JoJo Parker, who could potentially be their shortstop of the future as well. Not sure about that. I want to throw that over to Aram. Just at least another shortstop of note. So I really like the move from Atkins.
Aram, quick pushback from you on the Parker Namala conversation, and then I want to cap the Blue Jay thought.
Yeah, I've saw that point made by a few, and my thing with that is like if you're trading a upper minors shortstop prospect because you have a low A shortstop prospect that's swinging it pretty well. I don't know like if that would be the best process. I think this was just them really just wanting Jose Soriano. And maybe it's a little bit easier just knowing that at least you have somebody else that can really, project into that guy. But I still have some concerns if Parker can stick it short, like in Namala is an above average shortstop. But I agree with everything Peter said, like in terms of the process for the Jays here. And this is a team that is not all that different from the team that made it to the World Series and almost won it. Like with some of these bolstered pieces here and just this season's loss, a lot of shit didn't go their way. Running it back next year with a little bit of a better look. And then the year after that with the same core that got there. You lost a couple small pieces, but to be able to jolt it like this, I think is exciting. I guess they're hoping that they're going to be able to replenish a little bit of the farm system with some of the smaller trades. It's a steep price to pay, but if Jose Soriano is a mid-rotation starter for you for the next 2 years after this, I think it's worth it, assuming that the Blue Jays are remotely competitive, which is ultimately the expectation.
Yeah, real quick, just want to tie a bow on the Blue Jay thought because I think Peter hit the nail on the head. Like this was certainly the blip in the radar season, and there were a whole bunch of things that went wrong right away. Like, mind you, the Blue Jay slide this season was effectively shot at the beginning of the year, and they had this climb back to relevance and then this stoop down a couple of weeks ago. But April did them in, and it goes back to like the age-old adage, you can't win a division in April, but you can certainly lose a division in April. And Toronto lost a division in April. And it was injury related, right? Noya Savage for the first couple of months really stunk. Ponce getting hurt right away really stunk. Alejandro Kirk getting hurt right away. Springer getting hurt right away. They had so many guys in that lineup that got hurt, while Okamoto was underwhelming for the first month and a half of his career. And then Vladdy. I mean, Vladdy hasn't hit the ball out of the ballpark, and you think that that's going to correct itself next year. You will see a better version of the Blue Jays next year, I promise you. This was the 10th percentile outcome this year of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah.
And if we get the 60th percentile, they're a wild card team, no doubt, and they're probably competing for second in that division. And if we get the 75th or 80th percentile next year, especially with Soriano and Ponce and Cease and Savage, that can be a really dangerous team and a World Series caliber team as soon as next year. Want to take us to one of the newer moves here? The Yankees. They finally do something to address the offense. Mark Feinsand reported that the New York Yankees, they not only acquired Luis Garcia Jr. last night, they also go and get Heliot Ramos from the San Francisco Giants. So Heliot Ramos is officially a New York Yankee. Henry Lalane is going to be the primary prospect in the return. Heliot Ramos is a masher, particularly against left-handed pitching. He brings some thump to that lineup. Peter, where do your concerns sit with Heliot Ramos?
Defense and his ability to hit right-handed pitching. And he's one of those players, too, where when you watch him enough consistently, consistency is not a part of his game. It's a lot of ebbs and flows. However, at the top of the mountain, he could be a really, really solid player and provide a ton of explosion at the plate. But at the bottom, he's swinging and missing too much, and the defense has – I've seen some horrific plays out there in left field. But the Yankees, they're not acquiring Heliot Ramos to be their everyday left fielder. They're acquiring Heliot Ramos to be a soft side of the platoon bat. And against left-handed pitching this season, he's rocking a 127 WRC plus, which means he's been 27% above the league average rate against left-handed pitching, which is exactly what the Yankees need. And I was a little bit surprised to see Henry Lalane as the main prospect in this deal. I think the Giants are getting a really good young pitching prospect. But then you have to remember that Heliot Ramos comes with, 3.5 years of control? And he's really cheap as well. But ultimately, I thought the Giants did pretty well here. And I feel like the Yankees, the clock is running out on them, on their ability to acquire a right-handed bat. Don't love this one. I don't hate it. I don't love it either.
Aram has disagreement on something you said.
No, I think it's just one of those where it's like that you're going to have to kind of bargain bin shop for right-handers at this point. Like there's just not that many right-handed bats out there. So I don't hate like the creativity. And if they gave up somebody more impactful, I get it. What's interesting is Lalane has a lot. There's a lot to dream on there.
Yeah.
But like emphasis on the dream side. Now he's taken a big step forward here. And I think when you look at the Giants organization and what you can bring to the table here, it's the exact kind of guy you want to probably get in a deal like this. But given how cheap he is and you know, maybe they can unlock something the Yankees with Ramos or help him improve in some areas. I think it's at least interesting from that perspective. Olane's had a really nice year. Injuries have limited him and have also caused the velocity to fluctuate. This guy's 6'7", 211 pounds. He's definitely gotten stronger this year as he's gotten healthier. And his fastball's up 2 ticks. So now averaging 94 miles per hour. He gets good extension down the mound, obviously, with how big he is. And the secondaries have been a work in progress, but the changeup has always been there for him. And that's a pitch that I feel like has gotten a lot better this year as well, feel-wise. And then he's trying to find that breaking ball. Like it's just not as much. He's clearly a pronator. But the fastball changeup combination from a 6'7" lefty is really fun to kind of dream on. He's 22 years old, still hasn't pitched above high A, but he had a lot of success at low A and is starting to settle in at high A. So I think it's a fun get for the Giants, but one, if you're the Yankees, I don't think you're losing a ton of sleep over. It's probably a player that, you know, when you look at all of the arms that the Yankees have, not the end of the world to keep trading a few.
Another fun one that Peyton just flashed up on the screen if you're with us on YouTube or X. And thank you all very much for, again, joining us here on our MLB draft, or on not our MLB draft, on our MLB trade deadline live stream. I can't conflate all the live streams, man. Ken Rosenthal reporting the Brewers are working to acquire reliever Antonio Senzatella from the Colorado Rockies. This is about 45 minutes removed from Milwaukee going to acquire Dustin May and JoJo Romero from the St. Louis Cardinals. So an interesting one that we can dissect momentarily. I do want to take us to one of the more disappointing deadlines. Credit to you, Peter Apple. The Atlanta Braves. We have 30 minutes to go until the MLB trade deadline at 6 p.m. Eastern time, but the Atlanta Braves have been active, but just how active is this? The Braves acquire Tyler Mahle from San Francisco for right-hander Anthony Molina. They acquire lefty bullpen arm Brent Suter from the Angels for Nacho Alvarez Jr., and they also go and get Lane Thomas and Bailey Falter from the Royals for Lucas Braun and Carter Holton. There's not much sex appeal here for the Atlanta Braves. Like, if they were going to go be a big swinger, this is not the deadline you want to see if you're Braves fans. Again, there's 30 minutes left. They can go do something much bigger, but Atlanta, you're right, Peter. This is just kind of a dud from them at this deadline.
Yeah, the reason I made this prediction was I was looking at the Braves roster and I said, all right, the Braves don't actually need anything, which means Alex Anthopoulos is not going to trade from his farm system in order to get big-time pieces. Because that's what Alex Anthopoulos does. And I go back and forth on him because on one hand, I fully recognize what an incredible job he's done overall with the Braves. But then at the same time, I can understand Braves fans' frustrations where they feel like he never does the big-time move, the big swing, right? And the Dodgers are making big swings. There's other teams who are making big swings. We just talked about the Adley deal, right? Where it was a quote-unquote overpay. Other teams are overpaying, but they're getting the guy, and they're trying to make a run at the playoffs, while the Braves are making the model win type moves, the bargain bin moves, we think we can get more out of this guy who's pitched to a 13 ERA this season. And that was my worry with the Braves, because unless they absolutely needed something, I said they're probably not going to do much then. And now it's not nothing. Lane Thomas is a nice addition, right? He could certainly hit left-handed pitching. He'll slot in nicely to their outfield. We said that was one of their needs. They got a starting pitcher, Tyler Mahle, who did look good in his last start. Like, he does slot into the back end of their rotation. But I think, Jack, when we were, and Aram too, when we were all having the discussion about the Braves, we wanted a 2 because we thought relying so fully on Spencer Schwellenbach to come back from full health is putting a lot on him. So we were hoping they would make a big swing, even for a Casey Mize, right? But instead they get Tyler Mahle, and I feel like they have 7 Tyler Mahles in-house. Am I wrong, Aram? Don't they have 7 of these guys?
Yeah, they do. And that's why I just kind of felt like it might just be an innings eating, like just insurance policy move, and they just we haven't seen anything else yet. I'm still holding my breath. Like Mize felt like the perfect fit, and I still feel like there's some sort of world where that happens at the deadline. So like we got another 27 minutes here, so I'm curious. But yeah, it does just kind of feel like that classic Braves deadline where they make some of those secondary additions to just kind of help bolster them for the rest of the regular season run, and they trust in their guys.
Yep. The MLB Trade Deadline live stream for Just Baseball is presented by Goat Labs. Goat Labs is a brand new sponsor of Just Baseball. So excited to be working with them. And if you haven't scanned the QR code in the bottom right corner yet, I highly recommend you do so because it's really easy to beat Peter Apple at this game here. goat-lab.app/justbaseball. You have to beat Peter's score of 86. Aram and I both built an 103 overall player, a 103 overall player. But Peter with the same grouping of guys, because you get a set of spins. Wow. You get a set of spins every day. You can build your ultimate player, play out their career, and see how they do. How about this bomb that Peyton Genas just dropped on us? Foster Griffin, who signed a 1-year deal coming over from Japan, an all-star for the Washington Nationals this year. And it was reported by Buster Olney of ESPN that they could be interested, the Washington Nationals, in working out an extension with Foster Griffin. The slide right before the deadline, per Robert Murray, sends Foster Griffin from Washington to Cleveland. Cleveland, mind you, is the only team in Major League Baseball that hasn't used a 6th starting pitcher this year. They've had 5 guys start a baseball game for them. They have had supreme health, and they add an all-star starting pitcher to the fold. My initial thought is, do they go 6-man rotation here? My other thought is, holy smokes, Cleveland looks good right now. Griffin is a blast to watch just perform surgery on the mound every 5th day.
I'm so glad the Guardians made this move because, one, isn't Foster Griffin the most Cleveland Guardians pitcher you've ever seen?
Absolutely.
I don't think
Messick to Griffin will be the most frustrating series of all time. And obviously you have Gavin Williams leading it off, but I'm just thinking about those 2 lefties would drive me insane.
This is the best.
And then you got Cantillo as like this wild card out of the pen. It's going to be so much fun.
And you know what? We gave a golf clap to the Angels for finally, going in that type of direction. How about the Cleveland freaking Guardians? Like they've
Joe Adell and Foster Griffin.
Adell and Foster Griffin. That's what I'm talking about, Guardians. Like we want to go win this shit. So I think it's a great job by Cleveland. I'm just curious what the return is for Foster Griffin because, like you said, Jack, all-star, having a fantastic season. What are the Nationals going to get in return? I want to see Taboni cook.
Yeah. And he's been cooking, mind you. So really fun here. Aram, what do you make of Foster Griffin's year? Do you see sustainability?
I feel like I was waiting for like month 2, month 3 in there for that to start to like just for him to regress a little bit. And I just don't think it's going to happen. We've seen now, I think, a large enough sample size where the stuff is just good enough when paired with the surgical aspect of his ability on the mound that you mentioned, Jack, that he's just going to be incredibly consistent. And when you pair just the field of pitch that he has, the deep bag of offerings, I mean, it's like there's 6 different offerings that he can come at you with, maybe a 7th that he'll technically throw in there. And even when he doesn't have it that day with one of his offerings, he can pivot to another one and execute. So I love this get for the Guardians. It raises their ceiling too, because he's better than, I don't know who gets displaced. Is it Cantillo? Would it be Cantillo that gets displaced?
No, I think it's
would it be Ciccone?
I thought, probably Ciccone. You move him out of the rotation, just raises the ceiling of that rotation. And now you've got 3 different guys that you feel really good about getting the ball. And then, of course, still a 4th solid one.
4 players reportedly going back to Washington from Cleveland for Foster Griffin. So excited to see who those 4 players are. Also, Peyton, I'll allow you time to build out the graphic, but the Minnesota Twins, Peter's Twins, getting Jeff Hoffman from the Toronto Blue Jays. Damn, they're going in. We talked about the Braves and their disappointing deadline. It was pretty disappointing for Philly until this morning when they go and get the premier bat-to-ball guy in Major League Baseball in Luis Arraez. Luis Arraez and a reliever that throws 100 miles an hour in Caleb Killian. Arraez and Killian go from San Francisco to Philadelphia for Ramon Marquez and Marty Guerre, two right-handed pitching relievers. Arm, you think Marquez is really good, and I want to tee you up for that in a moment here, but Arraez creates this puzzle, like this jigsaw puzzle that has been sorted out. Reportedly, I think it was Todd Zalecki that reported this, Bryce Harper brought his outfield glove on the last road trip. Harper's going to be pivoting back to right field or left field. Harper's going to be playing the corner outfield. Bryson Stott is going to make the pivot from second base to third base, and Alec Boehm is going to go corner to corner. He was the third baseman. Boehm is now going to play first base for the Philadelphia Phillies. So again, it's going to be Boehm at first, Arraez at second, Trey Turner remains at short, Stott at third, and Bryce Harper goes to the corner outfield. Before we get into the Arraez fit in Philly, which I feel like is a slam dunk personally, Aram, who is Ramon Marquez?
This has been one of the breakout pitching prospects in baseball this year. And I honestly think they had to tack on Killian just to be able to get Marquez back in this deal, because Killian's a sneaky get in this, like he's not insignificant given that, you know, he's pitched at leverage for the Giants and you've got 5 years of control with that. I really think they had to tack him on. They probably didn't want to move him to be able to get a pitcher like Marquez. Marquez's fastball's ticked up 1.5 miles per hour this year. So he's now sitting in the mid 90s. That's always huge for a guy that has an elite changeup. So now you have that velocity separation. Marquez's changeup's like a freaking screwball out of that release point. And it's like 14 to 15 miles per hour of separation there. And it just falls off the table. Opponents are hitting below 100 against Marquez's changeup this season. And with the uptick in velocity, it's also made his kind of cutterish slider sharper and more effective as well. So you have the better fastball, you have the elite changeup, you have that cutterish slider as well, and a good feel to pitch. Going into this month, or going into July, we wrote up the Giants system. Crazy fun bats, high upside guys that you say, wow, this system's really improved, especially if these guys can figure it out, at the lower levels, but they need more pitching, especially upper level right-handed pitching. They go out and get Jackson Flora in the draft. They get two other high upside arms with their second and third picks. And then now they add in Marquez here. This is one of the most rapidly rising and strong systems now all of a sudden in baseball. I know it's been a horrible lost season for Giants fans and for the Giants, but at the very least, this system was already had as much momentum as any. You add some of these guys to the fold too. This is a really balanced now and exciting system.
Peter, what do you think about Dave Dombrowski trading a breakout pitching prospect to go and get Arentzel Arraez, who changes the fabric of this lineup drastically?
Well, that's why Arm is so great, because I didn't know much about this pitching prospect. And then I'm watching those highlights that Podcast P put up there, and I'm like, that is a nightmare for hitters. You see that tunnel arm? Like, it's from the same exact arm angle, and he's got the slider, and he's got the changeup, and he's got the fastball, and it just feels like, at least, again, just from watching that video, the guys aren't ready for it. So for the Phillies, or excuse me, the Giants to get a piece who looks as good as he just did, I'm impressed. But on the Phillies side, on the major league side, the Phillies desperately needed a bat. It's kind of that same conversation that we had with the Yankees and Luis Garcia, where you thought, wait, where's he going to play? You figure it out, because at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Phillies ranked 29th in on-base percentage this season. 29th. Luis Arraez, 360 OBP. Right batting average, they ranked 23rd. Luis Arraez, he's hitting 320, 330. So it's a bat that can set the table at the top for guys like Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, because Trey Turner ain't cutting it at the top of the lineup, right? But maybe you move Turner back in the lineup a little bit. I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but Luis Arraez, just simply looking at the bat, is a perfect fit inside the Phillies lineup. Now, defensively, that's where I'm not sure. I even put out, on Twitter that I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think this is going to happen, but I think it would be at least interesting to try if you actually put Trey Turner out there in center field and you move Bryson Stott over to shortstop. Stott I think, would be a much better defensive shortstop than Trey Turner has been this season, with -14 defensive runs saved and -8 outs above average. If Turner can't field a position, put him out there in center. But I'm texting Arm about that, and he's like, so we're going to give Trey Turner a crash course on center field in August? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. But then I would argue, is it a good idea to keep rolling him out there at shortstop? So regardless, the Phillies are going to figure out defensive positioning. And even our friend, the Warmonger, who does great work on X, make sure that you follow him, really in depth on the defensive side. And
he's amazing. He's amazing. He has answered so many questions for me. I've had players ask me questions about defensive metrics. I said, I don't know. I go straight to him and relay the message back.
And he agreed with me. So that was like,
I did. I saw that and I was like, all right, I got to walk it back a little bit. But it is jarring because you're telling a shortstop to just go learn center field, who's already struggling to figure out how to get it going at the plate. And it's like, we're trying to figure it out in center too.
But he's not a rookie though. He's Trey freaking Turner. Couldn't you figure it out? But regardless, you're adding Luis Arraez to the bat. That is the most important thing for the Phillies. They'll figure out defensive positioning. That's the least of our worries. We got to hit. We got to
lengthen this lineup.
Yeah. And Luis Arraez does that.
Oh my gosh. The fact that you can just, instead of the big boppers at the top, that you have just another quality at bat to just add there and the opportunities and the way that he could potentially set the table. You mentioned OBP, but for him setting the table, like you can provide protection in front of some of these power guys too. And I think that's going to be a big part of it as well. So I'm really interested to see how they set up the lineup after that, but it affords a lot of opportunity there for Mattingly and for the Phillies. And I think he's going to be a great spark.
You know, I think like in terms of a new school thought that Arraez doesn't need to hit leadoff here. Like Arraez was obviously in the top 2 of the Giant lineup pretty much every single game this year. But I'm thinking if you have Luis Arraez hitting 5th in this lineup, that does so much because there are some decent OBP guys at the top. It's been the bottom half of the Philly lineup that has tanked their numbers to the point where they're 29th in baseball and on base. Like they were running out a 34-year-old, 35-year-old JT Realmuto, who is a shell of what JT was a couple of years ago.
They're still going to run him out there, though.
They're still running him out there. But
for 2 more years after this one.
Yeah, when JT was hurt, I mean, you were looking at Rafael Marchand, who I think his OPS started with a 2, if I'm not mistaken, and then Garrett Stubbs as well. So, like, it was a bad situation, and then Crawford has not been that good in center field. At least from an offensive production standpoint. And they've had other guys that have been very underwhelming. Like Bohm has ticked up over the last month and a half, 2 months. Oh, man. How about this from Derek Gold? I believe this St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Ali Marmol just walked out to bring back Lars Nootbaar from batting practice, and he's getting hugs from Coach John Jay and others. So Lars Nootbaar is going to be on the move. We will find out very, very shortly. Yeah, man, I think this Philly lineup construction could be very interesting. And I think having Arraez in a place to drive in runs could also be a fascinating wrinkle to this. Before we move on to the next trade, I also want to golf clap Bryce Harper because Harper now on several different occasions has actively made a pivot to better the Philadelphia Phillies. He went from the corner outfield to first base to help them win and to give them more flexibility when his arm was not 100%. And now he's saying, you know what? We got a shot to get a rise and retool our infield. Shit, let me grab the outfield glove and let me push back into the corner outfield spot. I think he's very, very selfless when it comes to things like that.
100%. But to that point, I'm really interested to see what he looks like defensively. What is it? First time in the outfield since 2022. Didn't even play a ton of outfield even in 2022. That's going to be a big, I think, wrinkle in this whole thing too, in terms of how much better or worse the defense will be with this shuffle is how ultimately he looks in the outfield. But I think we might have just got our Braves move finally.
Real quick, do we bring him back to the JUCO days, put him behind the dish?
That'd be awesome. On the bench. And then on the hill pumping 96.
Oh, that'd be sick. Bryce Harper wouldn't even know how to squat anymore, but he's still got that arm. All I'm saying is, think creatively. That's what I'm trying to do, putting Trey Turner in center field.
Peyton, if we have a visual for Lars Nootbaar, we can run that. If not, we can move on to the next deal. Let me know. No, he's saying I have no idea. I think, Aram, could you have gotten duped by the comments or no?
Did I get duped?
For what? For the Foster
Nootbaar to the Braves? Did we get that yet?
I haven't seen that yet.
Not yet. No. Duped.
I think you
gotta ignore the comments. That would be a good fit, though.
That would be a good fit. All right, let's pivot to the next trade that we got to talk about here that went down a couple of hours ago. Staying in the National League East, but kind of going the other way, Liam Hicks is traded from the Miami Marlins to the Tampa Bay Rays. Liam Hicks, who's played a lot of first base and DH as of late, but still catching once or twice a week. Braden Taylor, former first-round pick, along with a couple other guys, go back to the Miami Marlins. Jacob Kisting, a right-handed pitcher, and then Adrian Santana, who has had some prospect pedigree as an infielder as well. Arm Layton, 3 prospects in return for a Rule 5 pick last year, albeit a breakout bat this year in Liam Hicks. What was your take on the return?
Yeah, well, first, just heck of a process there by the Marlins and Bendix to turn a Rule 5 pick into, what he's given them value-wise over the last year and a half, and then also the return. But, I did think that Liam Hicks was worth a little bit more than this return. And I know some out there really like it, especially if you really like defense. This is we've seen it with Bendix. These are like model players. And by that, I mean defense, some contact skills, and, some speed as the carrying tools. But there might be some other flaws in the game. And when you watch them, you're not totally sure if that's going to completely translate. Braden Taylor is getting his 3rd taste at Double-A. He's breaking out this year in a lot of ways and having a great year, but still struggling against spin. The EVs are a little bit lighter than the power numbers would suggest. So that is a little bit of a concern with me. Santana is just a classic, fit for the Marlins, who love Starling Caba. They get a guy that I think is very similarly coded, great bat to ball switch hitter, can run. South Florida kid, I think, will stick it short, but I think he has a max air exit velocity of 103 miles per hour this year. So that's going to need to improve a little bit. That's 20 grade pop. And then the third piece is maybe the most interesting, where you're getting a right-hander that, with the T-Vax, I knew that'd be a fun one. You're getting a right-hander that has broken out this year, throws a splitter and a changeup, and has a pretty good feel to spin it. I think the arm that they ended up getting might be the most interesting in terms of what it may look like at the upper levels. But let's go. I'm very happy about this move.
This is the tough part about this stream is like, I want to hear Arm, and then I get the alert that Lars Nootbaar is going to Arizona. That I'm just like looking at him, looking down at my phone, and there's just so much happening, and this is why it's so much fun. But it's hard to get all of the thoughts correctly in a good, segmented way. But we're trying our best here.
Put a pin in the Nootbaar to Arizona thing real quick, because I do want to tell us. Actually, no, we got it. Peyton, good for you, man. That's a lightning quick turnaround. Per Jorge Castillo. Yeah, per Jorge Castillo and Alden Gonzalez, the Diamondbacks are acquiring Lars Nootbaar from the St. Louis Cardinals. Nootbaar is a really interesting fit, and Mike Hazen 2 months ago told everybody that he, not the team, he wanted a lefty hitting corner outfielder or first baseman, and Mike Hazen gets his lefty hitting corner outfielder in Lars Nootbaar. Our knee-jerk reaction, I know you have been following the Diamondbacks and their need for maybe offensive help pretty closely. They've had a very quiet deadline day. Yeah, and I was getting a little worried that something may not line up for them, being that this is a team that I've been pumped about this year. I think Peter's put me on the spot a couple of times throughout the year and checked in. There's been spots where I'm like, yeah, this is still a playoff team. And then there's been other spots where I'm like, it's getting harder to believe. And then they've been really, really good of late. 6 games over 500. Like, they needed to add to this team. Even with the flaws, you got to add to a team like that. But their system isn't great. And you don't want to trade from the couple guys you have at the top. How do you pull this off? They're able to do it here. And again, not a ton of bats to be able to go get. I think this is a good fit for them. And comes with a little bit of control as well. I'm interested to see how the profile plays out there. A guy that's always had good underlying data. We've always been waiting for it to fully come to fruition. But Arizona is a good place to maybe help that happen. They needed a left-handed bat as bad as anybody, right? You look at their lefty bats. It's Corbin Carroll. It's the switch hitters in Perdomo and Marte. Marte's better from the right side. And then it's Kepler, and that's about it. So to be able to plug in, a proven, established, consistent left-handed bat here in the outfield, I think really, really helps this D-backs lineup. Love it. Peter, anything on Nootbaar going to Arizona, or should we push on to the Chicago Cubs?
I think Aram mostly covered it. When we're looking for a left-handed power bat, we're looking for a right-handed contact bat. They needed a bat, period, right? This is a team that ranks 22nd in OPS. You look at homers, you look at steals, you look at numbers across the board. They're either average or below average at. So, and Lars Nootbaar has been a really solid bat. The problem is he just hasn't been able to really stay healthy, but he's healthy now. And that's what the Diamondbacks are acquiring. So again, any bats are good bats for Arizona.
Okay. We will push to a Cub conversation right now because the Cubs have been very active in terms of addressing pitching, and it's been an impressive deadline from Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins here. We'll start with the deal that you guys didn't get to last night because it came in late. Kevin Gausman made the move from Toronto to Chicago for Brett Bateman, an outfielder, and Ty Southesine, an infield prospect who is the older brother of Tate Southesine of the Atlanta Braves, a breakout that hit on the call-up late last week. But Kevin Gausman is a frontline arm that has bona fide playoff performances under his belt. Gausman is such a great get for the Cubs. I was fired up for Chicago when I saw this trade come through because they needed someone like this. There's a lot of unknown. Frankly, there's a lot of nothing in that Cub rotation right now because of the way injuries have just decimated it over the course of this season. But they needed someone experienced and seasoned and veteran, and someone that it was going to be like not hard to pry away from a team, but would make it emotional to pry that guy away from that team. And I know Blue Jays fans are really upset that Gausman had to go. It was the best course of action, obviously, because Gausman is in a walk year here. But Kevin Gausman with the Cubs screams to me match made in heaven. Peter, how do you see the Gausman fit in Chicago?
Couldn't agree with you more. I feel like this Cubs rotation is an anxiety-riddled rotation, and Gausman slows the heartbeat. Right? He comes in, he's a professional. He's been there, done that. You know, I like Shota. I like Matthew Boyd. I like a couple of their arms, but this is a been there, done that type of pitcher. And you also feel like Gausman, while he's not having the best year, we haven't seen a stark drop off in stuff or anything. This is still Kevin Gausman. And I've said this about Kevin Gausman before, and I'll say it probably for the rest of this season and for the rest of his career. Gausman is at his best when he's pinpoint with the fastball and the splitter, because you could just never guess right. And I've seen him dice through elite lineups when he's got it. When he doesn't, it doesn't look all that great. And more often than not, he hasn't had it. But when that focus locks in during the playoffs for the Cubs, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the best pitcher in this rotation come October. And it didn't cost them all that much, right, Arm?
Yeah, a couple really glove first bat to ball guys, also kind of the model fit. But yeah, I think higher floor pieces. But if you're the Cubs, I don't think you're losing sleep over that, especially with some of the top end position player prospects that you got or that you also use to make other additions here. I love it. I think the ceiling aspect when he's locked in, I agree, Pete. And then just a guy that has been there, I think, is absolutely huge. I also wanted to tie a bow because we had something come in on the Liam Hicks Rays side of the deal before we had the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fit for a couple of different reasons. But the Rays have always kind of punted the catching position, right? And we've talked about that. But Nick Fortes had a really nice year. He's a good defender, but that's a guy that you kind of like more in a part-time role behind the dish. So Hicks is able to give you, an upgrade there. But the Rays are the only team in Major League Baseball with a contact rate above 80%. You add now Liam Hicks there, who's fourth in the league in contact rate at 90%. And so you're already taking the number one strength they have and making it even stronger. They have the lowest strikeout rate in the league at 19.2%. And you add a guy with a strikeout rate of 9.5%. So the Rays already being the best bat to ball team are even more bat to ball-y. And you still have guys that can hit the ball hard, right? And Caminero and Aranda and, of course, Diaz.
Yeah. Podcast P dropped this nugget on the Hicks video breakdown. Liam Hicks swung and missed 12 pitches inside the strike zone for the Marlins this year. He hit 14 home runs. So he had fewer swings and misses on pitches in the zone than he did home runs hit this season.
That stat blows my mind. Say it again. 12 in-zone whiffs, 14 home runs. Like you already said it once, but I don't even think you put it in enough perspective. You got to say it again.
Liam Hicks swung and missed within the strike zone 12 times as a Marlin this year. He hit 14 home runs as a Marlin this year. Liam Hicks, I will tell you, I will personally miss Liam Hicks, the guy. Like Hicks is a really good dude. Excited to see him thrive in Tampa. But of course, excited about the prospect return coming back to Miami. I do want to keep on going with the Cubs here because Gausman wasn't the only move. There were two other moves here for pitching. And I want to kind of sandwich the Garrett one with Gausman on the front end and Holmes on the back end, because Braxton Garrett makes the move from the Marlins to the Cubs. And the return was Jonathan Long, a first baseman that has seemingly been blocked for a little bit. Jonathan Long and right-hander Jace Beck, they go back and return. Garrett's an interesting gamble because this is a command guy that is working his way back from Tommy John surgery, but he has been carving through AAA. Leighton, you've watched a lot of Braxton Garrett, and I know you've seen a decent bit of him this year as well. What do you make of Garrett and where he's at off of major elbow surgery?
Yeah, I think you saw the classic shake the rust off of TJ. And when you're a pitchability guy that really needs to execute, I think coming back off of TJ can be even tougher. And I think the Marlins kind of knew that, and that's why they were, having him take his time in AAA. But I think you saw in AAA, he really did settle in and have some positive stretches. But then you saw some blips where the command wasn't there. I think it's a perfect swap. Cubs have a ton of bats at the upper minors, 40-man guys potentially as well. Marlins get a right-handed bat that can help them on the big league level. But the Cubs get some solid pitching depth and a guy with control that at worst is going to be a solid innings eater for you, I think.
Wow, a couple things just came through from Jeff Passan of ESPN. The Cleveland Guardians are requiring Nathaniel Lowe in a trade with the Cincinnati Reds. That's a really interesting fit. And they get an upgrade at first base DH, seemingly. Rhys Hoskins, it's just not cutting it anymore. So Lowe effectively replaces Hoskins in that lineup. The other one that just came through, the Marlins, according to Passan, acquiring Victor Vodnik from the Rockies for Connor Norby and right-handed prospect Aiden May. So Norby and May go from the Marlins to the Rockies in exchange for Victor Vodnik, who has had an underwhelming year ERA-wise, but the stuff is incredibly loud. So pretty cool. And Podcast P, unbelievable turnaround time on those, because those just came through 45 seconds ago. This guy's a freaking machine. I know he probably doesn't have time to pop in and make this a four-man thing right now, but if you do, can we give you a round of applause to your face? No, he's not going anywhere.
In the Social Network where they got Mark Zuckerberg.
He's plugging his mic in. He's getting ready to go.
Yeah, where you got Mark Zuckerberg like in the corner is like, oh no, he's plugged in. He's plugged in right now. Like, don't bother him. That's what Podcast P is right now.
Yeah. Exactly. So Podcast P is working on that at the moment. The last Cubs one that we want to talk about here, actually, no, Peyton's popping in right now. So let's give him, again, a round of applause to his face, and then he'll keep on cooking here. So, Peyton, good job, dude.
I'll accept the glaze, dude.
Is this the most overstimulated you've been in like the last 48 hours?
I'd say the draft stream this year especially.
Because the camera kept cutting out.
But yeah, I was cortisoled up that day. But this one, I'm more having fun this time.
Cool. It is fun, and it is like a whip around in every single sense of the word here. All right, so we just had those two come in. I do want to circle back again to the Cubs because we hit on Kevin Gausman, we hit on Braxton Garrett, and now I want to hit on two guys coming over. The market for right-handed bats it seemed like buyers were clamoring for them, and the Cubs get a good one, and they also get a good starter who's working his way back on a rehab assignment. Clay Holmes started for High A Brooklyn on rehab, working his way back from that leg fracture. So Holmes, he started on Sunday. He gets traded from the Mets to the Chicago Cubs along with Tyrone Taylor. It's a two big leaguer for one prospect deal. Holmes and Tyrone Taylor from the Mets to the Cubs for an infield prospect, Jefferson Rojas, who, Aram, you were very, very high on, then you were high on, and then you were like very high on, and now are you back to high on?
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate depiction. He's been a difficult player to assess in the regard of like how much I like him, but I've always liked him, and I still think he's a really good player. The question's been defensively. I think in the early going, I was like, okay, he's always been the youngest player, one of the youngest players at each stop. Rojas, like maybe the glove will come along. I think now you look at it, and he's more likely a second or third baseman, but the bat is freaking awesome. So to get him, I think, again, another instance where the Mets had to package two players, but Rojas is probably the best player that they got at this deadline, and unless I'm forgetting somebody off the top, borderline top 100 prospect, good blend of hit and power, can run a little bit. And I think Rojas is going to be, an above average infield bat for you. I think second base, but the fact that he can be versatile and move over to third, that was a good get for the Mets, which I didn't love their returns. I thought that was one of their better returns, but to get two pieces on the big league side, for the Cubs, like I think ultimately that made it worth it.
hard to fathom we just talked through the deadline. So you've got the deadline concluding a minute ago. A couple more are coming in here, and the Pirates are stocking up. Kirby Yates goes from the Angels to the Pirates. The other one just reported was Lake Bacher goes from the Marlins to the Pirates. So the Pirates, they add Camilo Doval, Luke Weaver, Kirby Yates, and they add Lake Bacher here. Another one coming in at the last moment is Preller finally gets active. The Padres go and acquire Casey Mize from the Detroit Tigers. So Mize, one of the top rental arms that was left. Mize goes from the Tigers to the San Diego Padres. But again, the Pirates are bulking up on their relief arms here. You've got Luke Weaver, you've got Camilo Doval, you've got Lake Bacher, and you've got Kirby Yates here. The Pirates had one glaring deficiency, folks. They could not get outs after the 6th inning. And now it seems like they're built to get outs after the 6th inning. Absolutely fascinating what Cherington did. And Cherington, those are 4 solid relievers. Peter, I know you probably despise Doval for what he did over the last calendar year with the New York Yankees. There's a lot of talent in there. And you add those 4 guys to Gregory Soto and to other guys that throw hard in that Pirate bullpen, all of a sudden they're looking a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, just on the Doval side, like we talked about it yesterday. I think it was Arm and I, and it was kind of like I was surprised that the Yankees got warm bodies for Camilo Doval. But I also said at the same time, sometimes guys just don't work in New York. Still clearly talented. Now, it doesn't help that in his first appearance for the Pittsburgh Pirates, he gave up a home run, but that, it's just happenstance. Like, I still think he has talent. He still throws gas. He still keeps the ball on the ground, and he does not do a good job of holding runners. So Eddie Rodriguez back there, you're going to have your work cut out for you. But at the same time, they didn't only get Camilo Doval, right? I think you could make an argument that Camilo Doval is the worst reliever that they got. They got arguably the best reliever traded at this deadline in Luke Weaver. That is a big get for the Pirates and GM Ben Cherington. And then you can continue to go down the line like Lake Bacher. You guys would know more about him than I do, but from what I've watched, he looks like a pretty good reliever. Like, he's not bad, he's not great, but he's a nice fill-in for this Pirates bullpen that just needs guys who can throw. And then Kirby Yates has closing experience, and it hasn't been an entirely healthy season, but when Kirby Yates has been on the mound, he's been really solid as well. All the Pirates are doing here is just raising the floor, and it's sometimes easy for a GM to address needs when they're so apparent. And the Pirates clearly needed to address the bullpen. So what does Ben Cherington do? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. Actually, yes, 4. 4 relievers. It feels like the LeBron James press conference with the Heat, where he goes, not 1, not 2. But they got a bunch of relievers, and good for them. I'm rooting for them, and I think these are 4 good gets.
What do you think, Arm?
I mean, I think that's the best way for them to do it. I don't even think one big relief arm was going to fix it for them. Might as well volume shoot. And what I like about Bacher is, like, he's really versatile, and it's a guy that can go multi-inning for you. He's been able to throw a little bit at leverage. I think several of these guys can kind of be in different roles, and you can ride the hot hand for who you trust to close games out, which is probably always going to be the best way for the Pirates. So I love that they had an obvious issue and they addressed it with volume, and I can guarantee that their bullpen's going to be better than it was before. And that's all you can really ask for.
No doubt about that. We can go a whole bunch of different ways here because the trade deadline, again, it officially concluded at 6 o'clock Eastern time. It's 6:05 right now, but we still have things that are being reported at this very moment. Peter, hand up. What you got?
I just really want to talk about the Casey Mize deal that just came through because we
have a return yet?
We just got the return. Tigers get Cash Mayfield and Jackson Wolf. And I know Cash Mayfield is a big-time prospect, and at the end of the day, Casey Mize is a rental. So I wanted to throw it over to you or Aram to kind of break down that return because it feels steep to me, but at the same time, Casey Mize has been a freaking dog this year. So I understand it from that sense, and they also got Gage Workman in the deal too, so it wasn't solely Casey Mize. But for the Tigers to get a prospect of Cash Mayfield's pedigree, I feel like that's really solid, is it not?
Yeah, not bad at all. I think this was one of those where you weren't going to have the volume maybe to match with like a couple of second tier type of prospects. You had to give up, really one higher tier prospect. But I think Mayfield was a guy that you look at the ceiling. I know he's a first round, pedigree with him. and he's 6'4", 200. You'd expect a little bit more in there, but he dealt with a little bit of a shoulder stuff last year. The velo's back up a tad more, but he's still just averaging about 92. There's deception in there, and he can extend decently well. So I think he's able to outperform what you would maybe see on the surface with Mayfield in terms of the velocity. It's a good changeup, and that's what stands out for me as well. It's a low release. Fastball kind of carries a bit, but it's still most likely a back end of the rotation outlook. And so I think in that regard, the Padres, knowing that they're not giving up a super, super high ceiling, and Mize helps them a ton, obviously this year, could be their best pitcher now. Very well, like if he's hot, could be the guy that you trust as much as anybody in that rotation. I think it's worth it. And I think this is one of those where it's a good get for the Tigers. It's probably the best individual player they could have got. Maybe they could have got more value with two other guys, but you add in a left-handed pitcher here that's a high probability back end of the rotation guy. And I think for the Padres, it's still worth it though, to be able to add Mize and really go for it.
I love it. Again, the MLB Trade Deadline live stream from us at Just Baseball is presented by Goat Lab, goat-lab.app/justbaseball. Try and build a player that's better than Peters. He made an 86 overall player, couple of all-star games, no Hall of Fame. Aram and my player, I think made $750 million over the course of their career. Hall of Famer, career 311 hitter with a 940 OPS, and we racked it up. So you can try to beat us, highly unlikely. You can try to beat Peter, highly, highly likely. We've
real
got
quick too. Sorry, real quick. You can scan the QR code that you see on the screen instead of just clicking that link or going to the app. Like that's real easy there on the screen.
And we're giving away prizes.
And we're giving away prizes. So the winner, and we're going to track it during this entire stream, gets a free Just Baseball t-shirt and a free Just Baseball hat. And it's just fun. Like, why wouldn't you want to get involved? It's a great game. So make sure to download using the QR code.
I dig it. All right. We can start to play catch up with some of these. And Peyton, let me know if you have Foster Griffin and that return ready, because I find that one fascinating. But we are going to go right to the Taylor Ward deal, because Seattle, they started to get a little involved here. We saw late rumblings that Randy Arozarena could be open for business in terms of being acquired, but they hold on to Randy Arozarena. By reporting, it seems like Kirby and Hancock stay put, and they also add a righty bat, Taylor Ward, who's top 5 in Major League Baseball and on-base percentage. They get Taylor Ward from Baltimore for 3 prospects. There are 3 right-handed pitching prospects: Alex Hoppe, Harrison Kryling, and Brock Moore. Hoppe is probably the biggest name of these 3. Aram, what say you?
Yeah, I would say so, just because he's like close to big league. I mean, he's big league ready, has some experience, could jump in the bullpen if he could improve the command a little bit, but the walk rate's been a bit higher. With Kryling, like the stuff is good, but this is a 24-year-old at low A. It was a lighter return than I thought it would be, to be honest. And I know that it's a rental bat, and I think a lot of people are probably just a little bit worried at how Taylor Ward's just been more passive than anything, and not slugging, but also just stuffy guys that are older. I mean, Brock Moore as well, like super high strikeout rate this year between high A and double A, but has also battled some walk issues and is 26 years old. But what we've seen with the Mariners is they draft these kind of like senior signs or grad students in the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th round, don't give them huge bonuses, and they end up just developing into decent pieces. So good on the Mariners to be able to like kind of maximize these guys and turn it into a solid bat to help them. But I think each of them have a chance to develop into decent bullpen pieces. But I thought it was a light get, honestly, overall for Taylor Ward.
Ward had so much to this offense, Peter.
A ton. And it's kind of the same conversation that we've had with a few teams where just bring any good bat into the fold. But I especially like the fit here for Taylor Ward because he's seen a little bit of a power outage. And when I mean a little bit, I kind of mean a lot. 36 jacks last year, only 7 this season. But at the same time, he's rocking the highest on base percentage of his career at 383. And what do the Mariners not lack? Homers. They're 14th in homers. It's not bad. They certainly lack guys who can get on base. They rank 25th in OBP, 27th in OPS. Taylor Ward is going to provide what the Mariners need. Guys who can get on base. They got a couple big swingers. Just get on first base and we'll deal with it from there. You can play defense in right field as well, which has been kind of a tough area for the Mariners this season, right? They've had Dominic Canzone, who for lack of a better term, kind of has a noodle arm out there in right field. Definitely doesn't have the strongest arm. They've also had Luke Raley out there in right field. They've kind of tried a different cast of characters. Now you just get Taylor Ward. He's going to play right field. He's going to get on base at a 380 clip, and you hope that he can hit more home runs. And just like Arm said, didn't cost very much. This is a great trade for Seattle.
Okay. I want to take us over to Milwaukee, who bolsters up, and they could have added a back-end starter and another high-leverage reliever. Dustin May and JoJo Romero, they make their way within the division from St. Louis to Milwaukee. So May and JoJo Romero go from the Cardinals to the Brewers for a couple of outfield prospects, Alexander Frias and Carson Ragsdale. Those are the two that go back. Nope. What you got?
It's a graphic mistake, but it should be Josiah Ragsdale, I believe.
Josiah Ragsdale.
Yes. Josiah Ragsdale.
I saw Carson Ragsdale earlier on Twitter. Let's
see. That might have been
Carson Ragsdale's the pitcher.
Yeah. Josiah's the outfielder. And I assume we've seen a couple names botched. I saw somebody do Griffin Foster. I think that might have been a prominent reporter mentioned Griffin Foster.
There you go.
But
there you go.
This is my favorite trade because
really,
one, I like to see the Brewers going for it, and these are two guys that can absolutely help them. Chaim Bloom maximized this return. Like, I think this was a really, really good return for what they gave up. Frias is a borderline, I think, top 100 type of candidate with what he's doing. If he could settle into low A a little bit more. Guy hit like 440 the complex. He's long and lanky, but a good athlete. Already plus bat speed, has flashed, exciting exit velocities, and again just tore through the complex league. And then Josiah Ragsdale has just been a classic example of what the Brewers do. They get a good athlete, interesting player. They let him debut, kind of see how he does. And Ragsdale just was good, not great in his brief debut last year. I think overall you saw really good OBP skills, but just didn't really put much impact on the baseball. Subtle adjustments. Pushed his contact point out further in front this year, and he cuts his ground ball rate by 20%, and he's launched now 19 homers between high A and double A. This is a guy with plus wheels, with now plus raw power that he's getting into in games, and that was a guy that was kind of an afterthought for you. He was a 7th-round pick that you invested $237,000 in last year, but you immediately take and you level up because it's the freaking Brewers and their development. You pair that with Frias, an IFA guy, which they just do such a good job on that front. And that's the player that I look at the ceiling here with Alexander Frias. Again, I think you could make a case for him being top 100 caliber. Again, 441, 518, 678 slash line in 32 Arizona complex games as an 18-year-old. And he's already starting to settle in low A. I love the upside of Frias. I think for Dustin May and JoJo Romero and 2 rentals, right? Like, yes, I like it because I think they clearly have a plan. I think May is going to be good with the Brewers, and Romero helps for sure. But man, I think the upside of these 2 players, especially with Frias, is so exciting to add to this Cardinal system for rentals.
So I think JoJo Romero is one of the more underrated lefty relievers in baseball just because he's a ground ball gremlin. I mean, this guy, he's throwing bowling balls. Like, it's up there with Ferrer. Ferrer obviously throws 100 versus Romero's 95, but Romero has been one of the more under-the-radar consistent lefty bullpen arms in Major League Baseball. So I love that Milwaukee went to go do this, fortify the back end of their rotation, at least for the regular season, in Dustin May, who's nasty, and excited to see him get working in the Brewer lab. And then JoJo Romero, I just think, is another iron in the fire. And they have what is pretty damn close to a super pen at points with Ashby, with Patrick being able to go 4 innings out of the bullpen, and of course with McGill and Abner Uribe on the back end. Like, they have a lot of good stuff cooking pitching wise. Do want to take us to the Mets. Oh, wait, where did Fink go? Fink was hanging out here for a minute here, but he just disappeared, huh?
Yeah,
I think we were ready for the Mets, but oh well.
Yeah, we were talking about good trades, and he's like, I'm out of here. I haven't been involved in any good Mets trades all day long, so I can understand why he might be upset.
So sad. All right, you know what? Fink's taking a nap. We are actually going to talk about a Met here. I want to take us to Huáscar Brazoban, and
why don't we just let's wait for Fink just to come back, because I'm sure he will, and let's shout out the Goat Lab app again. Remember, use the promo, the QR code on this stream right here to download the app. It's so much fun. I'm telling you.
It was funny. I was going to pivot us to the White Sox conversation, but if Fink is coming back, then we can talk about the Mets. There were 8 New York Mets that were traded over the course of the last month or so when you account for David Peterson, but there were 7 New York Mets that were traded over the course of the last 48 to 72 hours, and Ryan Finkelstein has made his valiant return. He joins us now. The 7 New York Mets on top of David Peterson that have been dealt in the last 72 hours. Clay Holmes and Tyrone Taylor, they go to the Chicago Cubs. Brooks Raley, he was traded. A.J. Minter was traded to Minnesota. Huáscar Brazoban goes to the White Sox. Luke Weaver to the Pirates. Freddie Peralta to Tampa. Those are the 7 guys. Ryan Finkelstein, we were forecasting a New York Met fire sale. Did they do a good enough job? Yes or no? And why?
I mean, look, I think based on the market that we've seen unfold, like I look at each trade and I don't think for most of them they did a bad job on the return. I'm glad they got Jefferson Rojas as the final move. That makes me feel a lot better because I wouldn't be surprised if he slots in as like the number 1 Mets prospect for a lot of people after this. So I know for Pipeline he already is. That one I think saved things a little bit. The trade that I'm actually really frustrated with is the Luke Weaver deal. That one I think is absolutely brutal. Alone, Luke Weaver for Sammy Stafuro, 1-for-1. I was okay with that. It felt a little bit light, but the money that went the other way in the deal, you're telling me that the Pirates are going to be paying Luke Weaver, depends on who you ask, but I saw either $5.4 million over the next year and a half or $7.5 million. Either way, to not do better when that is what Luke Weaver is costing financially is wild to me. So that's the one that I think they really missed on. The other ones, I'm not really mad at. Most of these trades are rentals. So like this is the one where I would have just kept Luke Weaver as my closer for next season and moved Devin Williams into the 8th inning right now and just said, yeah, we set a high price tag for Luke Weaver. Nobody met it. And we're going to hold on to him because we're trying to win next season. That's the one that frustrates me. Everything else, again, it's mostly rental trades. I'm not going to get too mad about.
That was the part and I know we talked about it briefly, but it was like Stafura is a really good athlete and a guy that I didn't love early in Cincinnati just because I thought the swing was just so raw. It's gotten a lot better, but there's still some major swing and miss concerns. I still have some questions about whether he's just going to hit, but twitchy athlete, can play a good shortstop, can run. And it's a high upside guy that I think you're excited to bring in, and a Northeast kid, which is fun as well. I think literally grew up a Mets fan, which is awesome. But when you're paying a really good reliever down, I just thought you'd get a little bit more than just Stafura, who still comes with some hit tool risk. That said, we've talked about Stafura on the call up. We do our heat sheets, and like he's been the guy that's come up because he has been on some of the best stretches over the last month and a half of really any player in minor league baseball. So there's a chance that something has just really clicked for Stafura, and he's just kicked it into another gear offensively, which I think is the hope.
Yeah, that's cool. I do want to kind of pivot to the other side of some of these Mets deals, but
holy shit. I'm sorry, I didn't realize this. 15 homers by Stafura in his last 20 games.
Wow. There you go, Fink. You might be getting a dog.
Again, like when I first saw the 1-for-1, I honestly was happy with it. I thought it was a good trade. I was like, all right, well, at least you're getting off of, even if the Mets ate all of Luke Weaver's money for this season.
Yeah.
If you can reallocate $12.5 million, you can get a Luke Weaver comp in free agency. I just can't believe at that dollar amount they didn't do a little bit better. And that's the bigger thing for me. It's not even hating the prospect. It's hating the return when you're selling a year and a half of Luke Weaver for $7.5 million. And that's on the high end. It might be 5.4. If Luke Weaver was a free agent off of this season, what's he getting? 3 years, $40 million? Like for the Pirates to get a year and a half of Luke Weaver for $7.5 million, that's insane.
It is pretty insane. Fink, I think we can talk about some of the other teams' impacts from some of these Met deals. Like, do you want to sit here and talk about Brooks Raley's impact on the Philadelphia Phillies, or do you not care at all?
I really want Fink to break down all of the players that he traded away.
What kind of arm are the White Sox getting in Huáscar Brazoban, man? Let us know.
Well, you know what? That was another one. If there's another one that frustrates me, it's kind of the Brazoban trade because it's just so much control of a guy that I think is just going to throw that sinker for the next 3 years and just keep getting outs. I mean, it's year after year. This guy's never had like a bad season. It's just he doesn't pitch in leverage, but he still is a multi-inning guy. For the White Sox, he might pitch in leverage, and he was nails in the World Baseball Classic too. So that was another one where, like, I get that Gabe Davis is a nice lottery ticket for the Mets, but honestly, I would have just kept Braziban in the bullpen for next season. So I feel like the Mets could have had an alternate path where they just traded the rentals, and I would have been actually a little more pleased with what they did this deadline.
What'd you think about the Clay Holmes deal? Because I know we've already talked about that from the Cubs angle. And I know Arm kind of broke down the prospect package, but I'm just curious what you thought. Because, you know, Weaver, I guess, was the biggest name move just because he's healthy. But if we're talking about true talent, probably the best player that left the Mets is Clay Holmes, Tyrone Taylor, and you get Jefferson Rojas. I know you kind of mentioned it off top, but anything else on that one?
I think the two best returns that the Mets got are actually Holmes and Peralta. I think I actually like the three prospects collectively over Stafora for the Peralta trade, especially when you factor in the extra year of control. But as far as the Clay Holmes trade, I mean, look, again, Jefferson Rojas is the best prospect the Mets are getting at this deadline. They added a lot of depth to their system. Like you said, like 11 prospects. They completely have a brand new infield in Double-A now because Mitch Voigt just got called up. Now you have Rojas that's going to be in Double-A. Billy Amick, who came in the Minter trade, is in Double-A. I think there's one more that I'm even forgetting about here, but regardless, I think Rojas is kind of the prize of this deadline for the Mets. And so that if they didn't get that piece, I'd feel a lot worse. Like that's the one guy that you know is going to be a top 5 Mets prospect, according to everybody after this.
It's not Bruin Agbayani. He's not the prize possession of the Met deadline.
Honestly, I like the Minter return more than the Raley return. So I will say that. Like,
interesting.
I thought it was going to be the other way around, but I did like the Minter return a little bit more. But again, like, you can't really scrutinize rental trades. You just can't. Like especially in this market.
It's tough.
Hey, and let me build off Raley with you real quick because Brooks Raley is a guy that can give you headaches, and Raley is a really interesting pickup for Philadelphia. I think they needed some bullpen help getting to Duran and getting to Kerkering, and they got it here in a lefty and Brooks Raley. How sustainable do you think he is? Because I feel like you could look at the arsenal and look at the stuff and say he could get annihilated in October, but he's also just been doing it time and time again. And you're a guy that has sat here and watched every single one of Raley's outings.
Brooks Raley, I think based on the sample, it might be like 150 innings. He has like the second best ERA in Mets history for a reliever. That's how good he was across 4 seasons. It's Addison Reed and Brooks Raley. Brooks Raley
Reed, how about that?
That was a great pickup, man. 2015 deadline. But 10 years ago. Yeah, you look at what Brooks Raley is going to give them. It's just 3 consistent outs every time you send him out. Like he's going to go out there, he's going to get his 3 outs. And a lot of times it might be on 9 pitches. He'll just get a couple ground balls. And it's also, I think, a really nice piece to be able to go up against all these lefties. Like in particular, Brooks Raley is very familiar with pitching to Matt Olson. So if that's kind of the matchup down the stretch for the Phillies or even the Dodgers, like he's good against lefties, he's good against righties, and he's been pitching in leverage for most of his tenure with the Mets. So a really solid pickup for the Phillies.
Cool. You guys have any other Met-based questions for Fank or no? Are we going to let him go wallow in sadness?
No, I predicted. I had 3 predictions for this trade deadline. Tarek Skubal was preordained to the Dodgers. Hit.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Braves were going to have the most disappointing deadline. Maybe not most disappointing, but it was certainly disappointing.
One of the hits.
And then the Mets were going to win the deadline because of how well David Stearns was going to perform selling assets. I thought he was in the perfect spot. I thought this is where you'll get the best of David Stearns, and they arguably lost it. So I went 2 for 1 or 2 for 3. Not bad, right, Fink? Not bad.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
Serious question. I know you got to do Locked On Mets. How excited are you for the rest of the season now? Like, are there young guys that are going to come up? Like, how do you dig in now for the rest of the way?
He's on Robert's stock watch every 5th day.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm glad you brought that up. I actually got emotional seeing Robert Stock get emotional after that start. That guy's had a journey and had thoracic outlet syndrome, like surgery, like freaking a few months ago.
In March.
What the insane. Easy to root for that guy. But yeah, sorry, Fink, answer the question.
I can't wait to see 2 more months of Luis Robert Jr. I can't wait for that.
Well, yeah, why didn't he get traded?
I honestly think there was no takers. I mean, you either could have eaten all the money and gotten a flyer prospect, or you could have just tried to get out of his buyout for next year. couldn't do that. But I am excited on the stretch because, I think Jonah Tong probably comes up. And so I think they maybe go 6-man. And so you're going to get a start a week from Tong, Christian Scott, Nolan McLean, and Zach Thornton. I think that's fun. They're also going to throw a bunch of relievers that they're going to be trying out for next season. Like Zeferjahn is coming up already.
Hell yeah. That's reason to watch alone.
So you got that. And then you get to watch, Ewing, Benj, and McLean finish out the rookie season. So compared to 2023, there's a lot more to watch on the stretch than there was back then when the Mets had their last fire sale. And I'll be plugged into that new Binghamton Rumble Ponies infield too, because that's where you got to focus the content now. I'm a prospect show now. All of a sudden, I'm going to rival the call up.
Think before you go, have you played the Goat Lab app game? Because I'm looking at our comments right now. We got a bunch of people beating me. This guy, let me show this here. For Matthew, just got $627 million career earnings. Hall of Famer, 17-time All-Star. Peter's ball knowledge has now been questioned. Go beat me. I'm telling you, the winner gets a free hat and a free shirt from Just Baseball. And beyond just the prizes, it's going to be one of those games that you're always playing in your downtime. It's a really fun game. It's free. Remember to use the QR code. Fink, I'm really excited to see what you get because Arm and Jack have already played and beat the crap out of me. I don't think I played it right. I got to go back and play it again because an 86 just isn't cutting it. I can't be soft side of the platoon Paul Goldschmidt as my comp. It's not going to work.
Stop. All right, guys. See you later.
All right, appreciate it, Fink. We are going to pivot the conversation here to the Chicago White Sox. And by the way, we've got a whole bunch of scores here. I think I'm anonymous. I think that's my...
You are anonymous.
You are anonymous.
Yeah, I'm anonymous. Who are you, Aram? Didn't you get the same score that I did?
I thought I got a 103, but maybe I lost by a decimal there. Shout out Tommy Hodgkins, 105.
Shout out Tommy. You might win a free hat or a free shirt from Just Baseball. Remember, guys, once there's the QR code right there, use it. Try and win. It's so much fun.
There we go. I want to pivot the conversation here to the Chicago White Sox because the White Sox, they bought to a certain extent here. And there were a couple of big deals that came in. The first one a few days ago was Luis Castillo, obviously making the move from the Seattle Mariners to the Chicago White Sox. Luis Castillo goes to the White Sox for Sir Anthony Dominguez, Nolan Jones, and then a catching prospect, Boston Smith, who they actually, funny enough, acquired for Curtis Mead. The other two that jumped out here, Huascar Brazoban, we just mentioned. Brazoban adds to the White Sox bullpen here, and he can be a consistent arm. Brazoban goes from the Mets to the White Sox for right-hander Gabe Davis and right-hander Zach Franklin. And then the other one is they go and get a center fielder here that it seems like has some untapped athleticism right now in Brenton Doyle. Brenton Doyle goes from the Colorado Rockies to the Chicago White Sox for right-hander Mason Adams and shortstop Carlos Vioma. We've hit on Castillo and Brazoban already. You guys hit on Castillo on Sunday night's show.
Yeah.
Brazoban we just hit on with Fink. But I want to pick your brain on Brenton Doyle because this is a really interesting get for not a lot as it pertains to prospect capital here. I think this is a fun flyer to take when they've been hunting outfielders for months at this point, Ara.
Yeah, I think it was very clear for this team that they wanted to, try to get some controllable pieces, but I think more importantly, they weren't going to put all the chips forward. So it was going to be more like buy low strategic opportunities here. And I think they see a super talented Brenton Doyle where the defensive metrics are always going to be a little bit shoddy and in cores. This guy's going to go play an elite center field. And I think we've seen that through stretches, and I think getting to Chicago, just getting out of cores is only going to help him in that regard. But what I really like is, and you alluded to this, before we started recording, is just that Derek Showman's as good as they come when it comes to just not only developing hitters, but guys that whiff and are trying to find it, right? Like we've seen so many of those guys in Miami before Showman was, poached over and brought over to Chicago, to the South Side, that made leaps, and credit Showman. And I think this is a fun one because you don't need him to become Kyle Stowers. You don't need him to become Murakami. If Brenton Doyle is a 90 WRC plus, he's a 2 to 3 WAR player, and he's an easy, great addition to the fold there. So I think it's just figuring out how to get him from not being one of the worst hitters in the game. And it's should be all up from here.
And the 90 WRC plus can show itself in 20 homers and 20 backs. That's the coolest thing about this, where it could be like low batting average. Okay, whatever. And the K rate could still be there a little bit, but 90 WRC plus and a 2020 guy with elite defense and center, I'm signing up for that.
And if it doesn't work, sorry, Peter, if it doesn't work, like, who cares? You didn't give up much. And that was clearly the prerogative for the White Sox was we're not going to give up any of our top 10 prospects.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, it's a fun flyer to make. And if it doesn't work out, you won't lose sleep over this deal at all.
It's okay. You can cough if you want.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's in my throat there. I don't. I don't know.
We had some comments about, and I realized that where the fuck are the Reds?
Yeah,
is it nothing?
Yeah. Did you guys see that it was reported like 30 minutes before the deadline? Brady Singer is staying put. I was like, why?
Yeah,
why
for what purpose?
And why did you declare it 30 minutes before the deadline ended? That made no sense to me. I feel like the Reds had an opportunity here to either buy kind of like the Blue Jays did maybe for next year or sell off expiring pieces, do something.
So all they dealt was Nathaniel Lowe to Cleveland
and Caleb Ferguson
for international bonus pool money. They didn't even get
that's it.
And they got Juan Brito, who was DFA'd.
They got the
Juan
idea
Brito
of
got DFA. That's sad.
Yeah, they got the idea of a person in international bonus pool money, and they got a guy who got DFA'd.
Do you think they just spent their whole time workshopping Hunter Green mega trades and didn't come to fruition? And they did nothing else?
Just listening to our show and being like, wow, maybe that is a good
idea. 50-50 chance, Buster says. Wow, that's good to hear.
Then they finally nailed it with their model, and then they pitched it out. People were like, we don't want to do that. And they're like, oh,
and it's 6:04. Yeah. That would have been great 4 minutes ago.
It's 6:04.
So on a serious note, like, the Reds might need to be talked about as one of those teams, like, not operating, not really doing what they need to be doing.
I will push back on that because they aced Chase Burns going number 2 overall when nobody saw that.
That's
coming.
Good. You took a freakazoid pitcher.
Sal Stewart looks like a National League Rookie of the Year front runner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Ellie's
awesome.
Ellie's a superstar, but their margin moves are not good.
Like their process
might not be good. Yeah,
I just don't. I don't know.
I mean, that Gavin Lux for Mike Sirota trade might end up being like one of the worst trades that we've seen. And I don't mean to pile on them. What's the point, right?
I'm watching. They're on, like, they were always kind of in like the middle. Don't really pay attention to you tier. You don't do anything great. You don't do anything terrible. But like, I just think it's just run of the mill front office. Starting to think of them as like a bottom tier operation there. And I'm just watching. Just wanted to put it out there.
Did we miss any other trades? I feel like there definitely is some trades that we have missed. Cool.
Let's go rapid fire. I've got a few more written down here. Again, Casey Mize was a buzzer beater for San Diego. Not only does San Diego add Casey Mize, but they also add Robbie Ray from San Francisco. Robbie Ray has been throwing like one of the better arms in Major League Baseball over the last bit. Robbie Ray goes from San Francisco to San Diego for Miguel Mendez and Joniel Hernandez. Robbie Ray, all of a sudden, combined with Michael King, combined with Casey Mize, gives San Diego this rotation that isn't like you're trying to piece it together with German Marquez. And as Buehler slides down to the 4 or 5, you start to feel good about San Diego through the rest of the regular season.
100%. Just real quick on this one. There's no more opener to Griffin Canning. There's no more German Marquez. You're getting Robbie Ray and freaking Casey Mize. Right. And they might not be like top end elite starting pitchers, but Casey Mize has been pitching like it this year. And Robbie Ray's putting up a really solid season too. Again, just raising the floor in the only area the Padres are really struggling at right now.
And Peter, let me build off that real quick. They were already a couple games over 500 when they were opening for Griffin Canning and running out German Marquez and Randy Vasquez.
They're hot right now. And like, if I'm a Padres fan, like,
dude, Merrill's playing unbelievable ball right now. He's playing like that Rookie of the Year runner-up Merrill. Tatis is back. Machado is kind of like getting into the power surge. I think he's realizing that there are too many numbers out there and 205 isn't going to cut it, but like might as well hit 35 bombs this year. So there's some good stuff going on.
The other thing with it is like, well, Mize is a good option to potentially, when he's on, he can pitch deeper into games and give the bullpen a little bit of a day off. But like Robbie Ray, you can 5 and dive him. All you need is a quality 5 from each of your starters, and you're in the driver's seat. Good luck.
Okay.
The rest of the way they kept all their relievers. So
I'm happy that they held on.
Dive.
Yeah, I am over the moon happy that they held on to Mason Miller. I'm ecstatic they hung on to Morejon for their sake. Like, Morejon is, I get it, a rental, but Morejon to them means so much, and that super pen means so much. It's their ticket in over the final next 2 months or over the final 2 months. We've got 4 other.
Just quickly, I got to disagree on that part. Not trading Adrian Morejon. You could have gave him to the Yankees for cash considerations. I don't know why the Padres didn't do me personally a favor by sending one of my favorite left-handed relievers over to the Yankees. But seriously, I agree with everything that you said. I just had to. He was the guy I wanted so freaking badly.
And I thought they might, because the haul would be crazy, but it sounds like he might have just tipped his hand and said, like, I'll just resign with you guys.
Did you see the source off between like Heyman and Nightingale and some
I love a good old source off.
Where, it was back and forth about like, did the Yankees or the Padres decline a Will Warren for Adrian Morejon offer? And then Heyman the next day, when someone already said Nightingale's report was wrong, adds another prospect on top of it and said that the Padres declined. All of that was crazy. And ultimately we get absolutely nothing.
We get nothing. Quick shout on the return too. Miguel Mendez throws fuel. Cool. Fastball average is 97.5. He's got a 4-seamer and a 2-seamer.
He went to San Fran for Robbie Ray.
Going to San Fran.
In what deal? Yeah.
And the slider in the mid 80s is gross. And then Yaniel Hernandez is probably like in a slightly barren system, 17-year-old, interesting upside in the DSL. So the Giants, I thought, did as well as anybody in terms of maximizing their returns.
Yeah, they're real cool. We've got 4 other guys we got to go over here. One of them is Kris Bubic, who goes from the Royals to the LA Dodgers here. Kris Bubic, again, who has been hurt for quite a bit, goes in return for Carlos Duran, a right-handed pitcher. Or what do you have on Carlos Duran here?
Carlos Duran throws hard. And that was a guy that I want to say got up for a cup of coffee, if I remember correctly. And then it's just been now hanging out. I think it was last year. It's been hanging out in the PCL, but it's big swing and miss stuff. Going to take a chance and see if the command can get any better, but command's consistently been a problem. And it just feels like low cost to acquire for a guy that's hurt. And Bubic that's working his way back, that you're hoping can just potentially just be available for the stretch run of the playoffs.
Cool. I don't know why the Dodgers did this. Bubic is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. I mean, it didn't cost them much, but I just don't know if he's going to return. He's still on the 60-day IL, and he's dealing with not only an elbow injury, but a shoulder injury as well. I guess he started a throwing program in late July and is expected to pitch again this season. So maybe I'm wrong, but it just feels like a guy who hasn't really gotten going yet. Maybe just in case. And they were like, we like him so much that we're just going to take the chance if he is healthy, get him in our program. So I think trading for Tarek Skubal is fine ultimately, but I draw the line at getting Kris Bubic. I think now we're officially headed to a lockout.
Yeah, okay. Fair upside play. Just hope if he's healthy. If not, who cares, right? You give up Carlos Duran.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Little swapperoonie of big leaguers here. Daulton Varsho goes from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Houston Astros. In return, Spencer Arrighetti goes from the Astros to the Blue Jays here. Interesting one here. I dig the Varsho ad for Houston because they were running out Lucas Spence in center field. Houston needed a center fielder. They just needed another bat at the bottom or middle to bottom of that lineup. If Varsho is their 6-hitting center fielder with the chance for thump in a more hitter-friendly ballpark, playing Gold Glove caliber defense in center as well, just from like a range factor perspective, I think this is a fun get for Houston. And I think Houston, they didn't need to do much to be buyers at the deadline. I thought Dana Brown actually did a good job, not blowing up the farm system. I thought Kevin Alvarez was moving, to be honest with you. The way Houston was talking, I thought he was going to sell their top 5 prospects in hopes of keeping his job, but they're playing outstanding baseball right now. And they look like a team that can really win the AL West as currently constructed. And they get better in center field with Daulton Varsho.
They're hot, and they needed anyone to play center field. And I like the swing for a guy like Daulton Varsho, because we do know that when Varsho is right, he's one of the more dynamic players in all of Major League Baseball, because he can really defend his position at center field. But he, for the Blue Jays last year, 70 games in the regular season, swatted 20 homers. Like, that's the type of power he can also bring. He can also be a menace on the base paths. And I look at to just center field production for the Houston Astros this season. There's 72 WRC plus in center field, ranks 29th. They have a clean 0.0 F4 in center field again, which is one of the worst in baseball. So at the very worst, Daulton Varsho is just going to give you the exact production that you're used to. Yeah. Or he could be a lot better. And he also was a beast in the postseason too. So Jack, if they do win the West, or they make a wild card or anything like that, maybe you get a focused Daulton Varsho in the playoffs that could be a big-time hitter for you. And all it really costs is Spencer Arrighetti. And it just feels like the Astros have kind of been up and down with Arrighetti, and Arrighetti himself has been kind of up and down. You see the stuff, right? The strikeout rate is always really high, but then he has some games where he just gets pelted. He has no idea where the baseball is going. And I think they were just like, you know what? If feels like it's not going to work here, let's capitalize, let's address a position in need, and that is center field. So I think it was ultimately a good move on both sides. Like, I think the Blue Jays netting Arrighetti, there's still clear potential in that arm. It's one of those where we'll see what happens. It's really tough to declare a winner right now because both of them need to bounce back. And I don't know who's going to bounce back, but at least for the Astros, it can't get any worse in center field.
Aram, you got any other thoughts on Arrighetti or Varsho?
No, I think Wisniewski coming back made Arrighetti maybe a little bit more expendable as well. Sure. It's just kind of like that last rotation spot. And now Carlos Correa is not ruling out potentially trying to return by the end of the year. Cool. So maybe that can help them down the stretch. But I think the Astros were swinging a little bit bigger, trying to find a bigger bat, but asking prices were tall. And I was surprised similarly, Jack, that like they had the discipline to not overpay for a team that, like, it should add, but I don't think you should do anything crazy here as you're just starting to rebuild that farm back up and may have a turnover in the front office.
Real quick, Jack, before we move on to the next trade, I really want to answer this comment because we didn't touch on the Foster Griffin return. We just got all hyped up for the Guardians to the fact that they got Foster Griffin, and then we found out about the return later. So this comes to us from L. Walt 27 in our YouTube live. First of all, thank you to everybody joining. Got a bunch of people in here. The best way to support, if you've been enjoying the stream, just smash the like button and subscribe button. And also another good reason to subscribe, we have so much great stuff planned on this deadline moving forward. This will not be the last deadline episode you hear from us, and we got a lot of great guests planned this week as well to break down the deadline. So again, this comment, see a lot of people hating on the Foster Griffin return. I don't understand why. The Nats committed to a quantity over quality approach to fix their lack of arms in the system, and they only at the end of the day get 2 months of Foster Griffin. Podcast B, I don't know if you have it readily available, but I would love to hear both you and Aram's opinion on this return.
So the return, real quick, is 3 pitchers and an outfielder. The 3 pitchers, Will Dion, Josh Hartle, and Kendeglis Virguez, I think. And then outfielder Nick Mitchell is going back as well. Dion and Hartle are the guys that I think there's a lot known about those two. Dion is an upper minors guy. And then Josh Hartle, former Wake Forest guy who was a Pirate, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And made his way there in the Horwitz deal with Luis Ortiz.
Yeah. And that 3-team deal and then dealt again. Hartle is kind of a funky lefty that I think could end up just being a back end of the rotation innings eater. He's continued to be effective at AA. So I think that's a decent get. And then I think we're seeing the Nats just continue to pursue these like high octane stuff, relief types. And like, that's what they get with Virguez. I mean, he's got a lively fastball. It's 98 miles an hour from a really low release, like a 4.9 release, which is crazy. It's like almost a foot below league average. From that velocity, that's super rare. Like if you do a query of how many fastballs are going 97 plus miles per hour from a sub 5 foot release, I don't think you're going to find maybe any. So that's a really unique reliever there with this crazy cutter off of that. So I think that's a guy that you look at potentially could fast track to a big league relief opportunity there. You get the high floor left-hander. Mitchell is kind of just a throw-in, But I think overall, like, people were maybe expecting a little bit more for, a bigger ticket arm. But I agree with the original sentiment, which is they want more volume, and you get a couple guys that I think are high probability big leaguers in different ways. And even like a Will Dion, I think there's just still some intrigue there as well. I don't hate it at all. You could have maybe got one higher impact player, but again, I think the Nationals are looking at relief arms and closer to big league ready arms that can help them sooner rather than later. Dion's good depth, and then high octane potential reliever, and I want to make sure I said Vergez.
So you don't think the Nats should be disappointed in this return?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a rental pitchability lefty who's been really, really good. But I think it was the quantity over quality as that was alluded to. And I think that's kind of been the Taboni approach in general with most of the trades that they've made.
Yeah. All right. We've got 2 more deals off the top of our head. By the way, how about a minor leaguer for minor leaguer swap here? Seth Johnson for Colby Thomas. Seth Johnson goes from the Phillies to the A's for outfielder Colby Thomas. Thomas has some big league run. Seth Johnson has some big league run as well out of the Philly bullpen. So Thomas is added to the Phillies, and Jason Stark also mentions Philly was looking for another reliever or starter, but ran out of time. I wonder what that means. I wonder how big a fish they were looking to land. Philadelphia could probably use one more starting pitcher here, but been very fun to watch how Philly has operated at the deadline so far. And it was, I think, more subdued than a lot of people were anticipating. But they go and get Arraez, and they go and get Rayleigh, and here they had Colby Thomas as a bench outfield bat, which they could certainly utilize.
Yeah, I think just good depth, right-handed athlete. I've always been a little bit lower on him, but the guy's mashed in the upper minors, and you just add a guy that can play all 3 outfield spots and give you some depth. And I think any arm that they could possibly get for Sacramento and for the Athletics is going to work.
Yeah. Hey, I guess the question is, do you want Colby Thomas or Brian De La Cruz, Derek Hill, Gabriel Rincones Jr.? And I think the answer right now is Colby Thomas.
It might be Thomas.
Brian De La Cruz is kind of raking right now.
He's been raking. He has been raking. I think he started 8 for 11.
It's funny when you were listing off those names, Jack. I'm like, hey, those are some of the best hitters in the Phillies lineup right now. And Derek Hill and Brian De La Cruz.
Not Rincones. Rincones hit a home run and then he just went dormant.
I'm glad you brought him up. Not Rincones. I think it's Colby Thomas or Rincones, and I would choose almost anybody else except Rincones right now.
Yeah. So 2 more trades that we want to get to here. Number 1 is Joe Adell. Joe Adell goes from the Angels to the Cleveland Guardians, and this is part of the Guardian buy. The Guardians, again, they go and get Nathaniel Lowe. They go and get Foster Griffin, and they also add Joe Adell. Adell has obviously experienced a bit of a downturn from what he was doing last year, but he does still have 16 home runs this year. I saw a note he would be leading the Guardian lineup here in terms of home runs. And Joe Adell is a very, very athletic dude that just adds an element of pop to this Guardian lineup. I thought Chris Antonetti and the Guardians did a pretty good job here today at this deadline.
Yeah, the only thing about Joe Adell is that he's the most anti-Guardians player I've ever seen. Is he not? Like a guy who has nice plate discipline, takes good ABs, does a job, normally pretty good defensively. And I feel like Joe Adell is kind of just built on his tools. There's a lot of swing and miss in his game. He's walking only 3.5% of the time. That might be the lowest in all of Major League Baseball. But at the same time, haven't we kind of been waiting for the Guardians to take a swing on a player like Joe Adell with a ton of tools? And maybe they could teach him the guard ball way. Imagine the Joe Adell tools combined with guard ball. That could be a Hall of Famer. Obviously, it's going a little bit too far. But when it first came in, I was like, what? That's the least Guardians player I could have imagined, which almost makes it a Guardians move at the same time. Do you understand the galaxy brain I'm going through here, Arm?
Well, I think there's an even more surface level, straightforward explanation, which is 303, 338, 571 against left-handed pitching for a 910 OPS. And that's what the Guardians sorely, sorely needed. I also do think, to your point on that, though, Peter, they have been trying to buck the typical trend. Like they went super power whiff heavy on some of their last drafts. They clearly want to balance things out. But you bring in Adell, which, by the way, and I know we already talked about better process now for the Angels. They should have traded him last year. Imagine how much more they would have got. But you bring in a guy that can absolutely demolish the short side of the platoon for you here. And I think that's extremely valuable for the guards. And you get another year of control after this one. So I think with how good he's been against left-handed pitching, Joe, he has 10 homers in 130 plate appearances against lefties compared to 6 homers and 326 plate appearances against righties. It's a stark difference. But yeah, if he could hone in on the plate discipline, of course, that would help and make a difference. Kozar going the other way, like some catching depth in the organization, high probability big leaguer with how the glove has continued to come along. Took a step forward with the bat as well. I don't think anything super crazy. To me, he's kind of in between that backup catcher and starting catcher mold. So it's kind of like a second division regular. But those guys are still, high probability filling a role. Not a bad get in return for the Angels.
Yeah. I am curious to see how they kind of handle the catching situation moving forward. And I guess Pat Bailey's the answer here, and Hedges has been way better. But, trading Bo Naylor and that Yoho and Blake Perkins deal, and then also trading a catching prospect in Kozar as well. I'm curious if they're pushing all the chips in. Sorry. Thank you. I'm curious if they are pushing all the chips in on Patrick Bailey being kind of their everyday catcher moving forward, because Hedges, he's probably going to hang it up at some point soon. You would have to think so.
No, I think he's just hitting his prime.
Yeah, he's
raking.
Offensively, he's hitting his prime, but he's got to be a DH, and is he good enough to be a DH?
Before we move on to the next trade, I want to shout out this comment. Thank you so much for the donation from AuraForce00. Just getting off work, excited to catch up on all the trades and hear all the discussion. You guys rock. Thank you so much for that incredibly nice donation and for the comment. And again, thank you to everybody joining us here live on YouTube. We're going to go for probably about 10 more minutes, cover the rest of the trades, and then we are going to continue to do episodes. So this is far from the last time you're going to be hearing our opinions on these trades. It's more just we're going over instant reactions. So make sure to subscribe and like on YouTube. And for all those listening on audio afterwards, best way to support, 5-star review.
Last trade that we want to bring up here, and then I think our next episode that we should do on the Just Baseball show is deadline winners, and then the next one after that will probably be deadline losers. Just kind of let the cake bake a little bit longer.
Let the cake
but
bake.
Yeah.
But
we do have one more trade, and the Cubs go and acquire a back-end reliever that has been a strikeout machine as of late. Ryan Zeferjahn goes from the Angels to the Cubs. Moises Ballesteros, how about this fall from grace? Ballesteros goes from the Cubs to the Angels along with Mason McGuire for Ryan Zeferjahn, a guy who is walking the world, mind you. But Mo Baller has seen his value evaporate, it seems, over the last 365 days. And Ballesteros had himself a heck of a start to this season as well. He was looking like a masher. Aram, what happened to Ballesteros' value?
So this was an argument I've had so many times with Cubs fans when we were a little bit later to put him into the top 100. And this is the risk. This is the conundrum of the bat first short catcher that is not very good defensively. And I thought was like a 40 grade at best defensively. If Ballesteros does not rake, like absolutely rake, or make a mega leap defensively, there's not a lot of fallback options here. And that's always looking at with prospects. It's like you have the high-end outcome, but like what's the secondary outcome or the tertiary outcome? It still could be a big league role. For Ballesteros, it was kind of above average big league bat or nothing. And with him, and it's hit over power. There's a lot of pressure in different ways. And once it became more clear that he just wasn't going to be able to provide, I think, even serviceable defense, he's too short to play first. So now you have a DH. If you're a DH, you got to put up a 130 WRC plus, or it ain't going to be worth it. Or you got to be catching a once or twice a week and being solid there. And I think that was the problem. What I can't answer is what has gone on with Ballesteros this year, where a guy that is one of the more hitterish players I've seen in a long time, and why he was still, that borderline top 100 and eventually top 100 guy, has just lost his power. His game power has just been gone. 677 OPS, I think, this year. He's just blatantly struggling. I don't know if there's something going on health-wise or whatever, but I haven't really seen a hitter of that ability regress to the degree that he has. That said, in a relief deal, when the Angels are in the business of adding just any big leaguers they can, I still think this is a big league bat in Ballesteros. And whether it's a Vogelbach type of bat or, a guy that can actually be an above average DH offensive piece that can maybe catch once or twice a week is to be determined. But for a reliever, I think it's a good shot to take for still a 22-year-old guy who's clearly just had a lost season.
Yeah. We've got a couple of comments here that are asking for certain returns that we didn't really get to dive into here. First one is Jeff Hoffman that we want to get into, and thank you very much for the donation as well. Jeff Hoffman, again, he goes from Toronto to Minnesota, and the return from Jeff Hoffman, or the return from Minnesota to Toronto for Jeff Hoffman, left-hander Dason Hill, right-hander John Klein, and Damari Pena as well.
So is Dason Hill, who else?
John Klein and Damari Pena.
Dason Hill is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Real quick, though, Jeff Hoffman has been one of the best relievers in baseball ever since he was one of the worst relievers in baseball. We remember, Jeff Hoffman started off the season really poor. He had an ERA at 5, and Blue Jays fans were just so sick of him. And then really from June on, this guy has been otherworldly dominant. I just saw the other day that he gave up his first earned run over his last 15 or so appearances on the mound. So while I'm interested to hear about the package, Jeff Hoffman is a great get for the Twins when their biggest need is bullpen help, and this is a great ad.
Yeah, and I mean the stuff and the ceiling and the impact that he can have is huge, and for a team, as you mentioned, sorely needed it. But Hill is a guy that upside wise, I'm excited, just kind of surprised to see moved, and excited because Johnny King, really fun, stuffy left-handed pitching prospect that is awesome in the Jays system, and Hill is kind of in the same breath. King has made more progress to throw more strikes, and I'm excited to see if Hill can now do that in the Jays organization as well, because we're talking about a 6'5", long, lanky, like slender lefty that averages 96 with the fastball, and then has a trio of breaking balls working off of it, a changeup as well. The stuff, I mean, it is big league middle rotation stuff. It's just been a real challenge for him to throw strikes, and he can walk up to like 6 per 9. So if Hill at 20 years old can find a little bit more consistency, I mean, the ceiling is sky high. You have the fallback though with Hill of a leveraged, left-handed relief arm. But when you've got the trio of breaking balls, a four-seamer and a changeup from a 6'5" lefty, I'm going to give this guy as much runway to try to start as possible. Huge high ceiling, piece to be able to add.
Cool. I dig it. All right. I think we're good on these. Oh, the other return that we were asked about was possibly touching on the Lars Nootbaar return. Did you see who Nootbaar got?
Yeah, I think it was Daniel Egan was one of the players moved there.
Is he related to Kier Egan of Severance?
I miss Severance. Great show.
Great show.
I think Ben Stiller, they're filming again. I can't wait. That is
thank goodness. That's one of those I'm actually I count the days for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Egan's one of those where you got to ignore the surface level numbers because he has to throw in Amarillo, which is the PCL essentially, even though it's AA. It's like the same drill there. High probability back into the rotation type of starter. 6'4", 210 pounds, sturdy build. Like fastball is a little bit of the concern there where it's very stock, but I love all the secondaries. You've got a cutter to bridge a gyro slider and then a downer curveball off of that. He can really spin the baseball, and he still can tease with a changeup here and there. But I love the trio of, I guess it's 2 breaking balls and the cutter off of it that I think gives him a great chance to be a back end of the rotation type of innings eater. So I thought that wasn't a bad get. Just get him off of the moon there. And I think the numbers are going to be a lot better in the Cardinals system. So not bad for Nootbaar, who at the end of the day, hasn't been great offensively. I love the get for the D-backs to just upgrade that offense, but you weren't going to get a crazy haul for him.
Let's tie a bow on this program here by naming our knee-jerk winners and losers at this deadline here. Give me one trade deadline winner and one trade deadline loser. But before we give you that, we do want to shout out our friends at Goat Lab one more time who just presented this MLB Trade Deadline live stream. Again, go to goat-lab.app/justbaseball to play it. It is an addicting game. You can play it every single day, and you can try and beat Peter's absolutely abysmal 86 overall player.
I'm gonna get back on that. I'm gonna get back on that app, and I'm gonna do better this time, I promise. But again, the winner, Podcast P, if you have it, you could throw up the leaderboard as well. We're going to give out a free t-shirt and a free Just Baseball hat. and we still got a little bit of time if you want to scan that QR code. That was just on the screen.
No, that was a what's it called? Like a subliminal message when you flash something very, very quickly. Peyton, flash that real quick because Tarek Skubal did just meet with the Dodger media for the first time. Kyle Martinez, congratulations to Kyle Martinez.
Look at you. You're going to get a free Just Baseball hat and a free T-shirt. Congratulations, Kyle. Great stuff. And we got a lot of people playing the game already, and deservedly so. This app is awesome. Make sure you go download it.
I'll settle for 6th. Anonymous, that was me. Peyton, flash that Skubal quote because Tarek Skubal did just meet with LA media for the first time. Tarek Skubal says, quote, every team could trade for me. I don't sympathize with people that blame the Dodgers for anything they've done. It's a winning org. I really don't sympathize with people that are complaining because the Dodgers do all the right things. That is per Jesse Rogers of ESPN. He's fitting in nicely.
Yeah, I think it's saying the lines for sure. And also, I mean, those are like the MLB PA lines too, right? It's always going to be everyone can do what the Dodgers do what the Dodgers do. So I get it, but that is an interesting quote. Comfortable. Yeah, it's definitely not going to upset everybody else at all.
Yeah. Arm Layton, give me one knee-jerk winner and one knee-jerk loser. And again, our next 2 Just Baseball shows are going to be about trade deadline winners and losers.
Honestly, just the prospect head in me is still so obsessed with the Alexander Frias and Josiah Ragsdale interdivision trade there for Chaim Bloom. I can't get past that one. In terms of the trade in a vacuum, I still think that is my favorite trade, as crazy as that sounds. But like knee-jerk winner, I feel really good about what the Cubs did. I feel like we've been asking the Cubs to do a lot, and they kind of volume shot this thing and did a lot. So I am really happy with how much the Cubs did to bolster in several different areas to make their team better here. I think it's hard not to be excited about that.
Cool. Peter?
He did a winner. I'll do a loser. A team we haven't talked about at all, which I think is why they're a loser. The Rangers' whole deadline confused me.
Yeah.
Because originally, like 3 days ago, before this Astros series, they were leading the division. And it seemed like they were going to buy. And I even came on the show and I said, the Rangers are typically aggressive during this type of period. It's like, don't sleep on them. Don't sleep on the Rangers. And then they get belt to ass from the Astros. And then it starts coming out that they might sell or they might. Can you guys still hear me? I know my screen is. Okay, so you can still hear me.
Yeah, I mean, you got the bubble thumbs up and you froze. But just keep talking.
But it's exactly what the Rangers did at the deadline. They froze because they came out and said, we're actually going to start listening on other, like on a Jacob deGrom, on somebody else. I don't know why it's frozen, but I want to stay on this point because I think it's important. I don't understand why the Rangers kind of wanted to sell and they were listening, then didn't actually sell anyone outside of Josh Smith, and then didn't buy either. And they just stood pat for a team that could have used an injection of life here. And this is, again, the return. Josh Smith, Josh Steffen, Adam Macko. I mean, that's a pretty lame deadline. And, of course, maybe my computer took all that it could. And I froze out, too. I don't know why. But, yeah, not a great deadline for the Rangers at all.
I will send us out on a happy note. I've got 2 winners that I want to highlight here. Number 1 is the White Sox. I think the White Sox got better in 3 phases. Going to get Luis Castillo was pretty fun. Going to get Huáscar Brazoban was pretty fun. And then as well, going to get Brenton Doyle is an interesting lottery ticket. But Castillo, a guy that you guys hit on, obviously, on Sunday night. Castillo, I don't want to say is a sleeping giant because he's not the Luis Castillo that he was 2-3 years ago. But this guy, year in and year out, has been one of the more consistent starting pitchers in baseball, honestly. And Castillo getting out of the Seranthony Dominguez contract, that Dominguez deal doesn't look that good anymore. And then also going to get Boston Smith, who was very impressive in the minor leagues. It was kind of a steep price to pay for Seattle, but at the end of the day, thought Luis Castillo was a good pickup for the White Sox, along with Brazoban, along with Doyle. And then the other one, the Pirates needed to effectively build a bullpen from scratch. And the Pirates built a bullpen from scratch.
Yeah.
And they go and get Doval, they go and get Weaver, they go and get Bakker, and I'm missing one more, Kirby Yates. That's a hell of a build a bullpen from scratch job in one day.
I agree. Totally.
So that's what we got, folks. Again, thank you so much for joining our MLB Trade Deadline stream presented by Goat Lab. Huge congrats to our winner, and we will do winners and losers here coming up over the next few days. Good plan of content on the Just Baseball show on the call up. Again, if you liked our stuff, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to give us a follow on X. What an amazing job from our social team, our graphics team today. It was a crazy, crazy deadline, and there's no other way we'd have it. So really appreciate all of it. Either of you two, any final thoughts? Huge thank you to Peyton Genus as well. Peyton, you superstar, as always. Beast.
I was just about to say special shout out to Peyton. He was saying that he was loading up so many things in StreamYard. He ran out of room, did such a good job producing the show, and special shout out to the audience. Like, this was awesome. This was such a fun deadline, and I hope you enjoyed, because you guys heard those rumors. We might not get a great deadline. We got a great deadline. I mean, there were some massive trades made. There were some smaller trades made. There were some interesting prospect returns. We got it all here, and that's all we wanted. That's all we wanted was a great deadline, and I feel like we got it. So I'll lead us out. For Jack McMullen, for Arm Layton, we'll be back tomorrow. We will be back Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Again, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, here live on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Thank you to everybody listening. And with that, thank you, everybody.